We're on. We're finally on. This has been one of the most requested guests I've had, and it was actually almost... It wasn't a shock seeing you, but it was like, fuck, he looks so normal. And you hear all of these stories, and I've seen your graph and stuff, and you have this perception of people in your head of what they're going to look like, and it's never the right one. So, ladies and gentlemen, Pho, AKA David.
G'day, mate.
How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Nice to meet you.
It was nice to meet you. We had a good chat off camera as well.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting meeting older heads in the graph scene. That I'd even go as far to call you a pioneer in the Adelaide graph scene.
Yeah,
if you can be so humble to accept that.
I'm not the pioneer. I'm not a pioneer, man. Probably second wave or something, maybe even third or something.
Would you say, so? Who were, at your time? Who were the ones that you would look at and be like, "Fuck"?
Yeah, it was like people like Wiki and Sprint, Marl, Style, Bomber.
All from different suburbs of Adelaide?
Yeah, north and south and that, yeah.
Has north and south always, in your knowledge, been the hubs of graffiti?
No, there's east and west and that as well, no, definitely. But yeah, I suppose, north and south got the main train lines and that, so they're going to attract more, and there's no train line going east-west sort of thing so much, so yeah.
It's interesting because we talked off camera a bit, and we were saying how back in your day there would have been not much to graffiti. Because you catch the train now, we're talking...
In certain places, there wasn't so much going on, yeah.
It would have been harder because you catch the train now and there's so much infrastructure and there's so much shit you can put your tag up on that is just so
I think that's why
visible.
A lot of graffiti was probably more inner city.
Yeah.
Industrial areas, or, it's funny to think even, now that I say that, like Bowden didn't take off as being a haven for graffiti and that, till later on, like from 87. It was sort of ignored prior to that, there were no pieces around there in 85, 86, and there's a lot of walls around there and that. You'd think it would have attracted a lot of graffiti, and it didn't. But yeah, the showgrounds definitely around Goodwood, and that was a big one back in the day and that.
That's still pretty big as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Saw
was
some
there
tags on there.
The legal wall, or not the legal walls, but all the spots in the CBD, were they still pretty much the same as they are now?
There were no legal spots. Yeah, no.
None?
No. There's a couple of pieces in the city that were pretty... Well, there's a bit of graph in the city. There was Fresh and Funky. It was done by Wiki in 1984. So that was just off from Rundle Mall. It was right near the old Clinic 116 shop in Twin Street. And around in Perry Street, around the corner from that, there was FAB. So that was, 84, I think, as well. And then Telecom Tower was a building that was in, you're testing me here, Weymouth Street or something or other, Gawler Place. And, it was a building that was getting refurbished and that. And the guys were breaking in there and that were doing all pieces in there as well and that, so you could go in there and have a bit of a look at some pieces and that was going for a period as well. So, yeah, it was a bit, within the inner city area, and that was a bit of graph to have a look at there. But, yeah, that was only a brief period, I suppose, all those pieces I mentioned really in total.
And you seem like someone who, to me, that kind of, you're pretty intellectual. So you seem like you are pretty switched on with the history of graffiti and the intricacies of graffiti.
Yeah, no, I was just paying attention, man. I'm very observant.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I suppose I remember what I think's important and what I enjoy, and
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's got to. You got to learn your history, with graffiti, and then people have got to learn the history that we've created also. So it's an ongoing process, and people have got to be custodians of it, and you got to get everyone. We've got to get the story right, man.
So Jay Tuski was the first person that I met that was pretty on it with the history, because he's an intellectual person.
Yeah.
He's fantastic to talk to.
Yeah.
He's fucking passionate about
lovely bloke.
Everything. Good bloke.
Yeah.
But when he described what graffiti used to be to me, it was like, oh fuck, that's actually really he romanticized it a bit. He was like, graffiti back in the day to me was a love letter between artists. You would see someone's tag and you'd be like, fuck yeah, and then you would never meet each other. 10 years you just see your tags, but you'd always leave each other like little letters. And it's like...
Yeah, it's one way of looking at it, yeah.
But then, like, graffiti can be such a different thing for everyone. Like, we were talking in the car about, I don't understand the crew culture in graffiti that much. And you said it's just a like-minded group of people.
Yeah.
But everyone's goals are different. Some can teeter on more the crime side, some can teeter on more the artistic side of graffiti. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was reminded of that sort of thing when I was sort of researching the book and that as well. And then you think, oh, wow, you know, like, you got all these great TDC pieces and that, you know, and how did that occur, for instance, you know? And you go, well, you know, that crew organised themselves really, really well in you know, in comparison to the other crews and that to a certain degree and that, you know. And then I think, oh, you know, some of the stuff that we were doing on that, we were flying by the seat of our pants and that, you know, alcohol fueled and all this sort of stuff and that. And, you know, and again, that's not so much a TDC sort of crew thing or something or other. So just different personalities and different crews and different goals and ways of going about things. But, yeah.
What, back in your day, how young did you start?
I think I was 13. Yeah, which I think was quite common for a lot of people who were writing back then and that to be about that sort of age. The other people, like Wiki, I think, was interested. You know, he's one of the pioneers, definitely, of Adelaide graffiti. And, you know, he started in 83 and he was 18.
Fuck. Is he still around?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah.
Still kicking
No, he's
on?
moved into state some years ago on that, but he's still around on that, absolutely, yeah. Keep in contact.
And when you were growing up, was the scene, or you're obviously not involved in the younger scene now, but was it a rough scene to grow up with? Like, the demographic of kids would have been kind of lower income households?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Nah, there's always a pecking order on that, you know, at the bench and all that sort of stuff. You know, I got targeted by a few people and that, you know, to dodge a few clotheslines and that, you know, at the bench and that. I can think of a few characters that sort of took it, yeah, great bloody, great delight in giving me a hard time.
And when did RCF come about for you?
When Seven moved to Adelaide, well, he visited here, I think, he tested me a bit, but I think he visited here sort of like 89,
Yeah.
and then moved here by 90, and then moved the crew here by about 91 or something or other, but I think I was probably in it from about 1990 maybe, off the top of my head.
What does it stand for?
Rock City Funk.
Rock City Funk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the user's been pretty prominent in Adelaide.
But yeah,
for
originally
years.
a Sydney crew, you know, a couple of years prior.
Are you one of the... So when I had Two Loco on, he said you can... Or was it J2? One of them, someone said, I can't remember who said it, but they said they used to be able to tell... Oh, it was Two Loco. You used to be able to tell where someone was from based on their graffiti style back in the day, because it was so... Like, you could tell if someone was a Sydney rider or someone from Adelaide. But now, because of the internet and people get so much inspiration from so many different things, it's kind of still, like, blending in together. The styles are getting a bit crazier.
Yeah, you could be right there, to be honest.
Like, it used to...
It's a bit more separated
People
before.
used to have distinctive styles. Like, he can... Because he's in the scene still actively,
Yeah.
he could still tell when someone's from Sydney.
I couldn't really assess the Adelaide one so much in that. I think other people sort of, you know, obviously have their own take on that, looking from the outside in. But definitely, like, looking at a Melbourne style or a Sydney style or something or other, yeah, they sort of stood out.
Your style's fucking really...
Tags,
Yeah.
definitely as well.
Your piece style is very peculiar. It's like... It would teeter on, like... I wouldn't even say wild style, because I can still read it, and I can't read wild style.
I like to do a few different sort of styles. and that
Yeah,
too.
it is. It's very sporadic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't keep doing the same piece. There's a lot of people that think they're getting away with doing the same piece. It's not a good thing.
How fucking... It's not a cheap hobby either, is it?
No.
If you want to buy your paint. It's not a cheap hobby.
Yeah.
Like, how much would a standard piece cost you?
Oh, it's got to be $150 or something or other, but there are other ways around it and that, you know. You can get some cheaper options and that for some things and that, you know, roll paint, you fill, whatever and that, you know. There's some other ways around it, mix and paint, things like that. But, yeah, and, you know, it depends on what brands you want to buy and all that sort of thing, and, yeah.
And you travelled around a bit for your graffiti?
Yeah. No, I've done a lot of travelling in general and that, you know. I've been pretty fortunate, you know, and I hope I can do a bit more. And I've always tried to, paint probably everywhere I've been.
Is it weird?
Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't.
Even now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The best graffiti I've ever seen, funnily enough, was in Japan.
Yep.
And, like, have you been to Japan?
No.
When you go to Japan, obviously there's no graffiti there's no graffiti anywhere unless you look for it.
Yeah.
Like, there's none. You can.
Yeah, you can find cities like that where you have to know where to look or you won't see it really.
Well, I think in Osaka there's actual legal walls where they let people graffiti. Or they just allow them to do it there.
I wouldn't want to get caught there.
Oh, fuck.
Culturally, I don't think it would really go down terribly well.
Oh, well, when that Loco bloke was in Japan, he had to flee to Korea because the police were fucking...
South Korea, I'll take it.
Yeah, South. You don't want to go to North. Imagine
I wouldn't do trains
throw
there.
up a fucking train.
But someone
there.
has, though.
No one has thrown up a fucking
I'd probably
train.
be surprised, mate.
No one.
It's probably pubes from Queensland.
The train culture, honestly, to me, is... So, graffiti to me is broken up into, like, 3 sections. There's your graphers, then there's, like, your elite panel graphers, and then there's your more artistic, like, legal wall, muralish style graffitiers. To me, the pinnacle of graffiti is when you can throw a piece on a train and it's a fucking amazing piece, but you've done it on a panel. To me, that is probably, like, the epitome of graffiti.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And it's interesting to like, it would be so much harder now, I feel, than it was back in the day. So it's amazing that people still throw up these crazy pieces.
I think every era's got its own challenges and that, you know, so they're hard to make comparisons now with that sort of stuff. But, kudos to anybody that's getting in there and giving it a go and yeah.
And you had a bit of a career in trains.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it the rush? Or what is it with trains that attracts... What?
I think, like you said, you know, it's the epitome of graffiti. So, you know, it's meant to be.
And
then, you know, if you can see something running, or you see even photos of it, you know, in transit or whatever, and that, you know, and people getting in and out of your train or something, maybe, and I've had different experiences, but, you know, you get to touch them and that's still sticky and all sorts of stuff, you know,
and a
hanging
New
out
York
windows or whatever and stuff, and you know.
Is a New York train still the mecca of, would you say, train riding?
Yeah, well, I don't know about... Yeah, I mean, New York's still the mecca of graffiti and that, you know, like it's just still got that energy and everything and that goes on there and that.
You would still call New York
I don't know about this, the mecca of train riding and that, you know, like they're still doing them, obviously, which is cool.
I imagine the New York train would be like a milestone for a lot of people.
I mean, you know, look, if you're if you put it this way, you know, if you're into trains and you like to travel around and do ones everywhere in different cities and all that sort of stuff and that, you know, like New York's definitely one you want to get ticked off the list. And I think anyone that's done New York, you know, that's a pat on the back, you know, and something you could be quite proud of.
What do you remember?
Any train you can get away with is a good one, but if you can get away with one in New York and that, you know, like, yeah. I actually saw a pretty cool one recently by Juice. I don't know when it was done or whatever on that, you know, but yeah, it was a pretty cracking panel on that in New York and that, and I thought, wow, man, that is pretty cool. If I'd done that, I'd be extremely happy.
I'm going to test you here a bit. You're going to have to fucking get in there. Do you remember your first train?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You do remember your first train? You remember?
Yeah, you don't
Before that, I was testing your memory on everything, but you never forget your first train.
Oh, you don't forget your first train, mate.
How old were you?
15. Yeah, 1987.
Do you remember which one it was?
Yeah, it was a Folsom.
Yeah. And that, as soon as you do your first one, is it like, I have to do the next one?
Oh, I can't remember that sort of emotion so much. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, it got pretty addictive. You know, I remember like you didn't want to do walls, like, you know, if you could keep doing trains all the time and that, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, sort of at the time and that, I think also you sort of think things can be are a bit harder than they really are or whatever and that, you know, and in hindsight you think you should have done more or whatever and that, you know, but we thought it was pretty sus. And you're trying to gauge, you know, when you can do them and when you can't do them, and maybe when a yard's hot, when it's not hot, and who else may be dabbling and doing trains as well and making a yard hot or whatever and that, you know, and riders want to have their own cooling off periods or whatever in a train yard before you go back and hit it again. And, you know, it's the gamble of when you should hit it and when you shouldn't hit it. You know, so we were playing that game as well in that, you know. But, we went as often as we could. It seemed to be pretty often We didn't do too badly. Yeah, I probably did about 15 or something or other in the end and that, you know. It was
15?
pretty cool, yeah. A couple of top to bottoms, did the first whole car on that with Plea. So, yeah, things like that was pretty cool. Yeah, no, they were good milestones and that.
Do you have a train, like a mission in your mind that will stick with you forever? Or one of the most, like the mission where you always remember? Because I was talking, when I was talking to Loco, I was like, I can tell it's not just the painting on the train of the night that you remember, it's the whole lead up to it, the little controversies and issues you had to kind of get over.
I just remember different sort of flashes and that, really. It's weird, yeah, in hindsight. You know, I can't remember the full sort of, the full
intricacies of the night.
And it's weird, like even with the whole car and that, you know, I can't remember, like a couple of glimpses, that's it.
You're probably fucking...
I can remember before, I can remember afterwards, but actually doing it, no, just a couple of glimpses, that was it, you know, and we were there for a few hours or whatever going on.
It's just on pure adrenaline, though.
I think so, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, you're just pumping away like that, yeah. But no, I can remember a few cool things and that. One cool night I can remember, and it's weird, like, I don't always get things right, I do leave things out and that. But yeah, I was reminded anyway, it was tense and Sway and myself, and we were doing Adelaide yards, and we'd done these pieces, and I'd started a piece on these other trains down at TJ Wall, which was down towards near the train station on North Terrace. And I did this faux panel. I got halfway through it and we got chased. And Tent said to me that night, he goes, oh, you know, why don't you go and finish your other train? So I did, you know, and that was a pretty cool suggestion. And so I went down outline, you know, finished filling in and outline my other panel as well. So I sort of did 1.5 that night. But, you know, so that was a cool sort of night, and that I sort of remember a bit more than most nights. And I can remember sort of even when we did the first trains in the main yard part of it and that, there was sort of, and this wasn't common, I suppose, there was sort of 2 rails in between the carriage we painted and the carriage behind us. So you could sort of step back in the yellow light and everything and that and see what was going on a little bit more than usual. Most of the times we did the outside row. So it was sort of in this shadow, you know. So this one, again, was on the opposite side of the train and that, you know, with the lights on us and that, you know. So it was pretty cool and that. And again, you could see what was going on. But yeah, again, I get different flashes of yards and that, you know, and I can remember sort of sticking my head up over the train and that, you know, and you've got your feet on the ridges of a couple of super train panels or whatever and that, and I'm quite tall and that, you know, so...
I was going to say it'd be a lot easier for you to fucking paint a train than me.
You know, it's like your own little playground and that, and you feel like you're the king of the world and that. Another night I remember we were with Sim. I can't remember what trains we were doing. Sim was often with us and that USN lad from Smithfield, and he did quite a few panels and good ones. And it was a real joke, he grabbed this fire extinguisher and just let it off, and he's doing like a wormy down the side of this red hen as we're leaving this yard. And it's, you know, whatever, the big white bloody fire extinguisher smoky routine and that going on and that. And it looks like the joint's on bloody fire, mate. We're going, let's get the hell out of here, man. And he's just laughing his ass off. And anyone that knew him and that, you know, knows him and that, you know. Anyone that knows him would, know that he's a real character and that with a big smile on his face and that, would know what was going on. Sorry, mate.
No, you're all good. But fuck, I forgot what I was going to say there. When you're doing the piece and stuff, is the chase when something goes wrong just as fun when you're younger?
No, I wouldn't say fun, mate.
But afterwards, like when it doesn't go wrong and you get away. Because I feel like
I was pretty lucky, mate. We always got away in that. I remember one of them in that. I'm not going to try and guess what trains we were doing. I was with Chrome, and someone else was with us as well, I reckon. And we jumped the fence from the yard in Adelaide Yards towards the River Torrens. And so we're on like the track that runs along the River Torrens, and we're heading towards North Terrace. And then a cop car came down, its lights on, came down the pathway. So we really had no choice. We weren't going to jump back into the yard. So we just jumped in the river. And we still had paint with us. And I remember we were pulling paint out of our bags and that and floating it out into the River Torrens. And so we're up to the river into our knees, I think, in the reeds and that, just bloody trying to camouflage ourselves, and they hadn't seen us, and they kept going on that, and then we got out all sort of wet, and headed up towards North Terrace and had to wait around a bit cold and all the rest of it for the first bus home and that, because no one ever had cars back then for any of this sort of stuff generally. Never had cars, so it was always catch the last train out or whatever and that, sleep out there, find some sort of mission on the way back or whatever and that, and wait for some sort of first light public transport, whether it's the first train back from the yard or whatever, or first bus out of the city. So yeah.
It would have been a crazy, crazy time doing graffiti in
It's just a lot of commitment,
90s.
and that's what we had. We just lived the whole life, like every moment, every day. No one worked, and I was thinking about that the other day as well. It's just funny how the world turns and that, Tense was probably the only person I knew back then and that in the early days, like 87 and that had a job. Everyone else was on the dole and that, and we were just running amok. All just meeting up with one another and going racking and that, and going all sorts of missions and that, and you're drawing your outlines and racking clothes or whatever, and every day was just living, eating, breathing graffiti, racking markers, racking the ink, going through all the bloody yellow pages and that, researching all the different shops and that, and just hitting every single warehouse, every single floral shop and that might have had like floral spray and all the rest of it. We investigated every sort of coloured spray paint you could find to see whether it worked. Hairspray, sheep spray, shoe spray, any spray. Metallic ones, vinyl spray, some were good, some were bad. I was a cage, we racked these big bloody 350 gram bloody like aquas or something, like Aquarius looking sort of colours they were in that, and the only other ones you could get like that was smaller touch-up ones. And we thought, these are great, these larger cans, and that we'll be able to do a lot more with them. And you got them home and you couldn't even tag with them, they were just
fucked.
Just water.
Yeah.
Just like this light green water.
And now you can just...
But it was all, trial and error with all that sort of stuff, you just try all of it and that,
That's why when I say pioneer, to me a pioneer is someone that had to go through all of that shit, because now you can just fucking press a button on your phone and get 24 cans of the
guys have researched it all on that, and they've made into a business, and you can just go and buy a bottle or whatever. But that's it, but everyone's buying everything these days as well. We racked all this, like no one had any money in that when I was a kid, man.
What was it like growing up in that? Like, were you always based in South Australia?
Yeah.
You always were?
Yeah. I was born in the country, but moved in when I was like 3.
In the country? Oh, on the farm?
Eyre Peninsula.
Acreage?
Yeah, no, not a farm, just in the town of Woodner.
And it's crazy seeing... Oh, fuck. It's crazy seeing, like... Even for me, and I'd be like 20-odd years younger than you, it's crazy for me seeing how much Adelaide's expanded since I've been younger. And it'd be fucking even more of a spin out for you. Back in the day, I lived in Morphevale my whole life, but our house backed on to the Southern Expressway. But the Southern Expressway was just a dirt bike track when I was growing up.
Yeah, a lot of these sort of outward areas and that, and out north is the same, and that they're just paddocks. But now they've all filled in, housing estates,
Bro, it takes me
industry.
It takes me under 20 minutes to get to the CBD now because of the Southern Expressway. And now they're building that underpass or the tunnels, is it Torrensville or something?
I just remember when we were younger, because Chrome used to live at Hackham, and we'd stay at his place a bit and that,
Shout out to Hackham.
His mum would go away on some night or other and that, so we'd all go to his house for a party. And we'd always have to bloody walk from Noarlunga train station because there were no buses after, I don't know, 3:30 or something, rather in the afternoon or something.
That's so
regardless
funny.
of the day and that, so we'd have to walk and that, and No, Adelaide was just dead, man. Shops weren't open on a Sunday, they closed at 12 o'clock, on a Saturday. There was nothing to do on weekends, and that's why graffiti, I suppose, was so entertaining.
Just you and the boys.
And it wasn't so corporate and that, there were mum and pop sort of hardware stores and that we were racking from and everything and that, and that had its own character about it, like a general store sort of style sort of thing and that, and that was cool, man. I feel sorry for people that didn't get to experience all that sort of thing. It was cool, man. Old Adelaide. It was backward. Adelaide is backward. That's why we've got serial killers and all that sort of stuff that goes on here with out of sight, out of mind, and You know, it's a strange mentality, Adelaide, but I like it, and it has its own its own rewards and that, you know. And
you would have been there for Snowtown. You weren't there, but like you were there. You were like, it happened when you were old enough to be like, what the fuck?
Easily,
What the fuck?
easily.
That would have been fucked. Adelaide's, I love it here.
I actually went there once, and yeah.
Like to the
Got
bank.
fridge magnets from the joint next door and that.
To the bank.
Yeah, got a photo hanging out the front and that. Yeah.
That if no one.
I got a bit of a. We used to have a bit of a, well, I've got an interest. We used to have a bit more of a fascination in serial killers and that. You know, read quite a few books on it.
So
all and that.
I went through I am in my heart. I am a YouTube rat. So when I was growing up, I still remember the time and place my best friend told me about YouTube. I was in like year 4 or 5. Or maybe even 6. We were in primary school, and I was fucking hot glue gunning something. We used to have to use hot glue guns in home ec and shit. And he runs into fucking the class, and he's like, have you fucking seen this thing called YouTube that came out like last week? And I was like, nah. And he's like, you just go on it, and there's videos of like anything. And I was like, what do you mean? So yeah, I went home, we had dial up, so you go on the internet, take 2 hours to fucking watch a video. And ever since then, I've been hooked on YouTube, and I got obsessed with serial killer documentaries.
Yeah.
Like, obsessed. Like, the Night Stalker, fucking Dahmer, Bundy, just the big 3. Like, really, those are the big 3. Those are the big 3. But then, have you watched Dahmer on Netflix?
No, I don't watch that sort of stuff. Well, I've read, a bit, yeah.
So, I've watched and read every fucking piece of information about that bloke. And that series still found a way to surprise me. Like, I knew all the murders, but they filmed it in such a way where even I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? It was fantastic. And it's weird because you don't, when you say to people that you go through a stint of like being really intrigued by serial killers, they like look at you like, what the fuck? It's like, no. It's like, you don't look at them as like it's not endearing. They're fucking crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, cannibals are the same.
Cannibal. There was that cannibal in.
Generally, there's a crossover.
Have we had a good cannibal in Australia?
Oh, probably.
I don't know. There is cannibalism's just fucking wild, but serial killers in general, it's just. And I was saying to someone the other day, you actually can't be a good serial killer now. It would be so hard. It's not like it was back in the day.
And that's what goes on in America, which is sort of scary in that, like there could be quite a few going on in that, but they don't even hit the headlines and that because it's just like, well, if you've only killed 2 or 3 people, mate, that's pretty commonplace and it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
You've got a certain standard shooting. And you haven't reached it, so just...
It's school shooting or
good luck
nothing.
Next time.
To make the headlines here, you got to off 17 children. It's fucked. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
What year was the Tasmanian massacre?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
That would have been 80s, I imagine.
Arthur.
Yeah. I think that would have been 80s.
Yeah, it's something. It might have been early 90s or something. Yeah, I can't remember.
It's very interesting. So what, I don't want to say your favourite, but who was your favourite one to read about? Serial killer wise.
There's one bloke, Henry Lee Lucas, because they reckon I don't know, mate. Some of these serial killers are full of shit, of course, and that. This bloke reckons he killed over 500 people, and I think he's sort of one of these blokes that whacked his mum or whatever. And yeah, what got me is just he just didn't give a rat's ass. He would
remorse.
Just rape anything, kill anything. Generally serial killers that stick to a certain, skin colour or certain, hair colour, whatever, age group, whatever, and that.
They'll have a
he
very
didn't care,
specific
mate.
type.
Young, old, didn't care. Just really bent unit.
Did you really
go, wow, how does someone like that
What was his
exist?
name?
Henry Lee Lucas.
Henry Lee Lucas
from... Not sure. He's US. And he had a partner, which is a little bit interesting also because they don't, serial killers don't generally have partners. Otis O'Toole, I think, was his partner. And there's a movie, what is it? Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is,
Oh, he looks like a
not
psycho.
supposed to be based on him, I don't think, in that, but basically is. Yeah, there you go.
I can pull
3
it up.
confirmed, 250 plus claimed.
Bloody hell. Where is it? Henry Lee Lucas, also known as the Confession Killer, was an American convicted murderer. Lucas was convicted of murdering his mother in the 1960s and 2 in 1983. I've never heard of him, ever.
And I just got interested, I think, because of the movie, and I love movies. So yeah.
Does he have a movie?
Yeah, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. I think it's not supposed to be based on him, but basically is. I mean, all the characters got the same name and everything, and that. There's his sidekick in it, Otis, and all the rest of it. So
Interesting.
that's a good movie.
That is interesting. Fucking.
That's a great movie, mate. I highly recommend it.
Charles Manson was always one I was obsessed with, just because.
Well, he's an interesting character in general because he didn't actually, he's not convicted of actually killing
he
anyone.
never killed anyone, but he's like one of the most.
Orchestrating it and.
But have you heard about MK Ultra and all of those?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, and it's like it's not fake. Like and you tell people, and it's like, no. This, you live in such a fucking bubble where you think these things don't happen. The 1970s and 60s were a fucking wild time, and we'll never understand it. That would have been when you were fucking a young'un in this. But there's people that live in this false bubble, and they'll never understand the shit that has gone on in the world. Like they used to have brothels, and they used to have like those frosted glasses where you can see out but you can't see in, and they used to get these prostitutes to feed these clients acid to figure out what acid does to people.
Yeah.
And they used to fucking feed it to Manson and then he ended up trying to brain control all of his like little minions with it, the Manson crew, and
He did a pretty good job.
he did a great job of it. And it's like, it was, and you tell people, and you're like, oh, it's all bullshit. It's like, no, it's not.
He's still buying bars, eh? He's still alive, yeah?
Surely not. He'd be fucking getting on if he was.
No,
I can look it up right now for you.
I don't know, but lost track of him.
Charlie Manson.
I had the chance to buy his autograph once.
You what?
I had the chance to buy his autograph once. Wasn't quite sure whether it was really by him or not, but yeah, apparently back in those days it's possible.
No, he died in 2017.
Oh, there you go.
Lived to 83. Healthy 83.
Yeah, no, interesting character.
Dahmer's definitely the worst. Well, I don't know if Dahmer's the worst, but
Dahmer was the one that was like drilling holes in heads and everything, eh? Like trying to control people. Like he just basically wanted friends and that, didn't want people to go home. And
it was sexual.
Wanted to make them zombies. And
Sexual fantasy.
Yeah.
Sexual fantasy
and
fucked
he had
him.
parts in bloody freezers or something.
Yeah, he had the bodies in this freezer. He was like making a shrine out of their skeletons, but he was like a very attractive, like young, charismatic bloke.
Yeah.
And but the cops are the reason that he killed everyone.
There's a bloke I went to school with. I ended up seeing him on the front page of the newspaper once. I just thought, oh my goodness, keep an eye on this one, boys and girls, because this isn't going to be good. It was always a weird one at school, and that got picked on by a lot of people and that, and like, look, it just was a fact and that, and I lost track of him after school and that, and the next thing you see, all these years later and that, he's on the front page, and he'd been charged for breaking into all these houses and that, so he'd obviously got into this petty crime sort of stuff, after school, but, more alarming was that he'd broken into a vet, and he'd taken a dead cat, and like took it home and that, and was like bloody playing around with it and that, and just go, what's going on here, mate? And again, with the serial killer thing, getting back to that, that's how those guys start.
Yeah, it's all with animals.
Once you start playing around with animals and that,
that's how
desensitised, then you start playing around with humans. And I just thought, mate, this bloke needs to be on a register and monitored full time, mate. This is not going to be. It's not going to be a love story going on here, mate. This will not be good. This bloke.
Whatever happened to him?
Don't know.
Shout out to fucking him. Hope you figured your shit out. Because that's how Dahmer started.
I remember at school we had this skewer up his sleeve, like a cooking skewer, because people would pick on him heaps and that, like I said, and he'd just lose it and just piss off, you know, and the skewer would come out and he'd start swinging wildly like he just had enough. Poor bastard.
That's the thing, though. These people fucking... I was very fortunate where I was in the cool group at school. Like, I was...
A lot of these kids, man, like, we don't realise, but as adults, I think it... You know, you think about it and you go, a lot of these kids, whatever was going on at school now, where we read that sort of situation, with that particular bloke, for instance, I reckon there's a lot more going on at home. Why the fuck you think he was the way he was? We never looked at it that way back then. Let's go get away from you annoying fucking strange individual or whatever.
But yeah, you think of these people, and do you know what the thing is now? Even if you got a good family life, if you go home and you're like bullied at school fucking horribly, it doesn't stop when you go home. Like, there's never an end because of the fucking social media now. So it would be such a fucking rough time to be bullied.
I met other ones that came to school as bullies and that because they got bullied at home and that. It was this bloody trickle-down effect or something or other somehow.
Yeah, so Jeffrey started playing with fucking the insides of animals. He was just infatuated by the inside of animals, and then he was like, I'd love to see the inside of a fucking human.
Yeah, I often think about serial killers and people go, oh, you know, blah, blah's a nice bloke. And then I go, yes, so was Ted Bundy, mate.
Yeah, Ted was a very charismatic, young, attractive man.
Whatever makes bullshit if he was a nice bloke. Yeah, great.
Oh, fucking hell, he was a psycho as well. It's just, I don't feel like you could get away with it anymore. In Western countries, anyway.
Yeah.
In, like, very modernised Western countries.
I read a book and they said, I don't know if things have changed in that. I suspect not for the better. If they have, you know, I reckon in America, any one time there are over 500 serial killers operating, and they're just travelling around all throughout the, you know, the 50-odd states or whatever. They're not getting picked up, you know. Like as it says in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, you know, if you stab one and you run the next one over, and then you burn the next one or whatever, and then you strangle the next one, and how are they going to tie it together? Random people, you have no connection to them. Like it's completely impassive, and that you're just grabbing strangers. You know, I think, you know, whatever percentage, 70-odd percentage of time or whatever, and that with a murder and that, you know, it's going to be someone that they know somehow. There's going to be some degree of separation there perhaps, but there's going to be some sort of connection.
John Wayne Gacy was fucked
Full
as well.
Serial killers, no connection whatsoever, random. And often people, as we know, you know, unfortunates that aren't going to be on the register to start with and won't be missed. Yeah, they don't string these things together. And how much effort they put into it anyway?
Yeah, it's fucking... America would probably be the easiest Western country to do it in. That country's a fucking shamble. That country is...
Probably a lot of them.
Oh, it's just fucking crazy over there. It's just baffling. America is the greatest reality show of all time. Just watching that country is so fascinating.
That's what I thought the place was, quite frankly. You just sit back, it's like a movie and that. Just go,
It
look
is.
at this, mate. It's
like,
entertainment.
Oh, the fucking president just got shot in the ear. Trump just got shot in the ear, and then fucking a week ago, last week, a cunt got into his private golf course with an AK-47. Like, and you can't script that. And the other side, that Kamala Harris is like, I don't condone this. Was
Do you know
planned.
how far away the election is by chance?
November, I believe.
Oh, God, we've got to still keep listening that long. I thought, hurry up and get it over and done with.
I'm going to do a live stream for it.
Yeah.
I want to watch it because I think it's hilarious. I don't know anything about politics. I don't even... Australia is so lucky that we do not need to worry about politics because it's all the same shit here. I feel like no matter who you vote for, no matter what's going to happen, it's all the same shit. But I don't even know who our fucking Prime Minister is. I
think this is all quite the same as well, mate. It's just a little bit more entertaining, as you say.
Is it Albanese?
Yeah, he's Labor, yes.
Is he our Prime Minister? Yeah. But we don't have anyone shooting anyone. Or like, it's just fucking wild over there. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty stagnant here.
But it's eventually it will reach a tipping point where something very atrocious happens in America. I feel anyway. It's just, you can tell by looking at them. There's just something will happen one day that'll be catastrophic in that fucking country.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty resilient country.
What year did you go?
Oh,
have you been a few times or?
Twice, 2014 and 2015 or something like that, I think.
2014, 15 would have been a good time. That would have been when America was kind of a bit less crazy and had more mysticism to it.
Yeah, I'm sort of glad I got there when I did, I suppose, and the world hasn't gone so mad.
When was COVID? 2019?
Yeah, something like that.
18, 19. But I think America really got damaged by COVID.
I think it would have been nice to
woke
experience all that sort of stuff pre-September 11.
That would have been when America
great.
would have
You know, I
thrived.
can only assume it would have been a lot more easy going and a bit more...
And when you went, did you go purely for graffiti or for holiday?
No, I never go purely for graffiti, man, ever.
It's just a side hustle.
No, I don't know, mate. You know, like I like them. Yeah, I don't get a lot of money in that, you know. So you want to make it, you know, go as far as you can in that, you know, with experiences or whatever and that. So yeah, you want to have a full.
And when you went to America, did you just do New York?
Yep.
And was it like? Did you feel like like a certain energy with you? Obviously, because graffiti is your passion. Were you like, fuck, this is where it all started?
Oh yeah, no, certainly, some parts of the place and that, definitely, man. Yeah, I had a few moments and that. Yeah, you know, Obi he was there with me and that, you know, pointing out a few things and that, and go, oh wow, you know, because you know. Look, you know, it's the same as seeing a pretty cool piece of artwork or whatever and that, you know, when you finally see it in the art gallery and that, you just go, wow. And it's the same sort of thing in this sort of situation.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, a bit more full on that, you know, and you're eating pizza and all this sort of stuff and really experiencing the whole thing that New York's got to offer.
New York would feel, like, even though I have no want to go to America, I still feel like New York is like a place you have to go before you die.
I just really like big cities and that, to be honest, and that. You know?
Really?
I've been in some pretty cool big cities. You know, like I like, you know, the fabulous Australian outback and all that sort of stuff to a certain degree and that, you know, but...
Have you travelled a lot of Australia?
Yeah, a fair bit, not all of it. You know, there's still a few places I haven't been. I haven't been to Tasmania.
I've never been to Tassie either.
I haven't seen much of Northern Territory.
Apparently Tassie's fucking phenomenal as well.
You know, I've only been to Perth once. You know, so, you know, there's plenty of gaps, obviously. You know, Brisbane I only saw briefly in that. You know, I'd like to see a bit more. Never been to Northern Australia, up further in that, you know. So, yeah, no, it's a lot more I'd like to see.
It's a funny thing because a lot of us, like, I have a lot of wanderlust. I share that trait with my father. I want to leave and just go see shit. But I've always skipped Australia. I've been to Melbourne 100 times.
Again, with me, man, it's all about the money aspect and that, you know. And I go as furthest as I can. I do all the most difficult stuff I can first. All the other stuff that's within Australia and that, I sort of feel that I'll do that later.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of travelling that when I was younger in that, Melbourne and Sydney. I've been there so many times, it's not funny. And you know, so I got some great friends there. You know, I still want to go and visit and all the rest of it. You know, but we don't gather as often as we used to by any means. So, I go further and do the more difficult ones, you know, and I even put New Zealand in that boat as well, you know, like I really want to see New Zealand, but again, it's close and it's very achievable just about any time. It's never going to be over expensive, et cetera, like, again, so it's going to be achievable. So I've got no interest in the Asian countries so much or anything like that, you know, like, again, I dig the tourism side of these sorts of countries and that, and I'm not all about concrete and steel, but I do love concrete and steel also. But it'd be best if they had some really cool sort of culture and everything going on, as well as some trains. You know, and I've been to Bali and that, you know, but there's no trains running through Bali, mate. You know, so...
You got to go to Japan.
Bali sort of thing and that. But yeah, again, Japan... No, I'd never go to Japan, not interested.
Really?
No.
Why not?
No,
I'm such a shill for Japan, bro. I've travelled a lot of Europe.
No, it's just so many other places I'd rather go, mate, like Machu Picchu and you know, see the pyramids of Egypt. You know, and again, it's about the money sort of aspect. Look, if I had dollars or whatever and that, mate, I'd be going to all these places. But, you know, being that I haven't, there's just a certain things on the bucket list, and that's not one of them. Cuba, I'd like to go and see.
Cuba would be fucking fantastic.
Be off its head, mate. You know, like, imagine smoking a Cuban cigar and having some rum.
It's on the beach. Do you have
doing a piece? Do graph from Cuba, man. I might have had trains, but there's pieces going on.
So, do you have a country that you've been to that was your most memorable place to graffiti?
New York.
New York.
Yeah, but I don't know, lots of different countries, lots of different experiences and that, to be honest, you know, like subway, train action and all sorts of shit, man. And I can think of the Lakes District and that, you know, in the UK as well, and that, you know, had nothing to do with graff whatsoever, and it was just incredible. You know, I've been lucky to see some pretty amazing sights and that, you know. And, yeah. You know, there's lots of different graffiti ones and that, man. You know, some trains that didn't work out and some that did and all sorts of...
How do you get, when you go to a country and you're not obviously very familiar with their train line at all, would you just scope it out for like a few hours? Or what's the process with that?
What I generally did with a lot of these sorts of places was, you know, I would research whether I, you know, I just didn't rock up at a joint out of chance and that, you know. Like, I always made sure I arrived in a city that either had some accommodation arranged and that, you know, or I had time to organise accommodation, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't arrive there late at night and that and just go, oh, shit, everything's closed and that, you know. I'd have a think about it. And generally, you know, you use your train passes properly and that, where you sort of maybe catch a train overnight and that, so you sleep on the train, and that saves you a night of accommodation also. So you rock up first thing in the morning and that gives you the full day to find somewhere to stay. Then when you find somewhere to stay and that, you know, and you work out all the basics of this is where I can eat and this is where I can get some money or whatever out of an ATM or some shit, and you go, right, and you start doing the touristy things probably as well, because you've done a bit of research like that as well and that, you know. And I'm into architecture and I'm into art galleries and things like that as well, depending on where we are. And so I'll go and have a look at that. If you had a hostel or something or other as part of your accommodation, you might hook up with some other locals or whatever and that and go and piss on for a couple of days while you're doing some of this stuff, or go in groups to see some of these art gallery things and that, because all the touristy dudes are doing all the touristy shit. At the same time, I'm keeping an eye out, man, for all the graff shit going on. And generally, if I didn't already have a phone number on that I might have had with me before I came from Australia, from someone else that had been there and knew someone, and just networking and that with it all. I'd look for a graff shop or something or other, or I'd look for a piece that might be in a shop or something or other, and go, who did that, you know? There might be a phone number there or something or other, you know, and then you just make the phone call and you just roll the dice a little bit in that, you know, because essentially if you do make contact with local riders, and that's what you're trying to do here, you got no way of knowing whether they're good guys or bad guys. Mm-hmm. You know, and even if they've got good pieces or bad pieces,
roll of the dice.
You got no idea.
Like,
you know,
we said before, like a good piece doesn't mean you're a good person, and a bad piece doesn't mean you're a bad person.
And not everything shows up in graph mags and that, and that's all we really knew when I was travelling that back then and that, you know. Not so much, there was no internet stuff and that, you know. So you just go and buy graph mags and that. So yeah, you roll the dice and you're assessing character sort of as you go on that, and you go from there and that, and hopefully you can experience some graffiti aspect of things there. I remember one night in Prague and that, you know, I hooked up with these guys and we're off to do these yards, and we ended up going to this bar prior to the yards. And it was weird, you know, there's some different tables obviously going on this bar, it was all dark and everything. And the different crews at different tables, and I think it was like they were all plotting and scheming to go out and do the different paintings that night and that, you know, as we were. And some other guys approached me and that, and they knew that, oh, he's from Australia and that, you know, and that's pretty exotic sort of style back then. This was 98.
Exotic style.
Yeah, it was.
Australian.
You know, like, what's an Australian doing in Prague, mate?
Yeah, it's very, that in what
back
year?
Back then it was a bit exotic, 98.
Oh, bro, you would have been like a fucking alien.
You know, like other places, not so much Berlin or whatever and that, you know, they got travel, you know, visitors and that much earlier and that, but, you know, these Eastern Europe ones maybe not so much. But anyway, I wouldn't have been the first one in Prague, but yeah, I was a bit exotic. Other joints you go to and they go, we don't give a shit where you're from, quite frankly. There's a bit of an arrogance that goes on. So what? Blokes rock up here all the time from all over the place. What makes you any... You know, if you're not that dude out of that magazine, we don't give a shit or something maybe as well. Who knows?
Did you do a lot of Eastern Europe in the 90s?
Oh, a couple of places and that.
So Eastern Europe to me would be a very interesting place for graffiti, because I feel like there would be a lot of political... there would be a lot of fuck you, because there was... Eastern Europe, for people who've never been around Eastern Europeans, are some of the most hard...
Oh, not all of them, man. Those are nice people,
No,
man.
they're very nice, but they're very, very, very hard people by nature, Eastern Europeans. I've found.
Yeah, some can be.
That would have been a wild place to fucking graffiti in Prague.
But you're finishing that story anyway with this other group of people and that, you know, like I had a choice of doing trains with the guys that I did, I was with, or do trains with these guys and that, you know. Ultimately I go, look, man, I've already been asked by these guys, I've got to stick with these guys. We go out to do these trains, we get chased and that, we don't finish the trains. I don't get photographs and that's another story and that, you know, but, you know, these other guys and that ended up going to do their trains and got away with them, caught up with them the next day and that, they took me to the yard, got photos of theirs. and just go, wow, well, I made the wrong choice there. Should have gone with the other guys.
Yeah.
But getting back to the communist thing and that, like I did really pay attention with all of that. I thought it was fascinating. I was in Poland and Warsaw, which was sort of decimated throughout World War II on that, and therefore was rebuilt by the Russians and that, and very much sort of Stalinist architecture and that. And I got some great photographs of like big Marlboro cowboy cigarette adverts and that.
Awesome.
This is cool, man.
That's awesome.
Like, I haven't seen this shit in years, mate, like just brilliant.
I love that.
But I wouldn't want to live there sort of thing with it either and that, like it was
terrible.
a bit sort of bloody oppressive and...
Like, even where my parents are from. So my parents are from Cyprus, but they're from...
Yeah, right, yeah, I know a bit about Cyprus.
They're from they're from a place called Rizogarapaso, which is like the very top point of Cyprus.
Bash is from Cyprus.
Who?
Bash, 738.
I wouldn't know who that is.
Man.
He's Cypriot.
Yeah, man.
Get him on. There's not many of us in Adelaide. Oh, there's a few, but not many. But
you don't know Bash?
Nah.
Fuck, mate. Train rider extraordinaire.
Really?
Fuck,
from where?
He's from Adelaide, but he doesn't live here at present.
Really? Yeah, right.
Yeah, he jet sets.
So
yeah, I won't say too much.
Where my parents are from in Cyprus, they got fucked by the Turks. Like, fucked.
Yeah,
my dad and that moved here in 73.
That's still contentious, isn't it, to
it's
this day?
still fucked. I've been over there 3 or 4 times, and you still have to cross a border, and because it's still it's Turkey, so you got to give them your passport and shit. But the first time I went there, that was the first time I experienced true... There's a difference, but there's a very big difference between poverty and war. Like, there's like war poverty and poverty is a very different thing.
Yeah.
So, like, we crossed this border and we were going to my granddad's house because he was still alive at the time. And it was fucked. No roads. It was all dirt still. And it was just fucking crazy. They lived in this cave, dude. Like, the house was made of fucking...
What year was this?
This would have been... 14 years ago.
Yep.
And you cross there, they cut, at this point, I don't know if they still do it, but they cut the water off every 2 days.
Yeah.
So you have to go to this well at the point of Cyprus, and you can see the island of Lebanon from the point. And you have to fill all of your bottles up, and you got to flush your toilet with that. You got to drink out of it, cook with it. They cut the electricity off, and every 3 hours they sing their fucking... Muslim prayer through the city, and there's speakers everywhere because it's
the call to prayer.
Yeah, the prayer, but every fucking couple, and you're not used to. I'm from Australia. I've never fucking experienced this, and it's tense. Like, it was just tense, but it's so beautiful there. But now apparently it's a lot different, and you can't blame the youth and the people my age for what their parents did. Like, they were just born there, so it's prospered a little bit. It's nicer. My dad loves going there now. He used to hate it, but it's very odd going to a country when you're just from little old Adelaide, where everyone's fucking...
Bash knocked over a paint shop there years ago. He goes, I remember hearing something vaguely about it, and that it was a one-horse town sort of thing, and that, mate, it was so obvious in that he was involved.
Does he have we won't say it, but does he have an Instagram?
Yeah.
He does? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Could you give it to me after? Yeah. That'd be interesting.
I can't remember what it is offhand.
It'd be interesting if you send it to me, because it's fucking... But war poverty and post-war oppression is so different to going to, say, an Asian country and there's poverty. Like, going to a war-torn country is fucking wild. Because it's fucked. Like, we're so lucky in Australia. We're so far away from everything that we don't understand how fucking lucky we are.
Yeah, but we also paid a great price for that sort of freedom and all that sort of shit as well, and the democratic way of life, etc., etc.
And we're cut off from a lot of, like... Living in Australia, if you want to travel, can be a very big inconvenience. Like, it's just so fucking far from everything That
Our dollar's not great.
our dollar's terrible. Our economy's fucked. Like, it's hard to buy food to eat now.
Yeah, but we're an exporter, not an importer, so that's always going to affect the dollar, and they're always going to manipulate it.
That's the thing, though. We're a major exporter of everything, but fucking it costs so much to bring everything back here that it's just crazy.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how people my age. I bought my house very young. I'm very fortunate. I bought my house really young, and if I had a kid now, I'd have to save up and buy that kind of house. Like, if I had a kid right now, I would have to put it in my mind that I needed to buy this kind of house. Well, he's going to have to save up a fucking $1 million to even get into the market.
You'd be better off getting him in to move in with you, mate, and when you end up getting old and that, he can look after you because you won't be able to afford retirement.
It's bloody crazy. Like, this, Morphettvale especially, and Hackham, like, all these suburbs that you would have gone to parties and shit in the later, and our place, this was a shithole back in the day. And now you can't buy anything here for less than $650.
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck? And then you're making only fucking $50,000 a year. A loaf of bread's $7.
Other states are even worse.
And Melbourne, and we're the cheapest state.
Yeah.
Like, we're the cheapest one.
Yeah.
But we won't be for longer. I don't think we will be for longer. Adelaide's very, very good city. Now.
Yeah, all in all, it's still okay, Adelaide.
I love Adelaide. I've lived in Sydney. I fucking hated it. Nice to, like, visit. Excellent to visit. I'm just so institutionalised to Adelaide. South Australia, I don't know why. Even when I go overseas, I always look forward to coming back home.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes you appreciate it.
See, I told you.
Good and bad.
I told you we wouldn't even really talk about graffiti on the pod. How do you get the name PHO?
It's just a variation of like FOE, like enemy.
FOE.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
right.
change the spelling.
Because when people used to ask for you, I didn't know your age, or didn't know if you were a new grapher or an old grapher. I thought you just really liked the soup.
Yeah, no, it was way before all that.
Yeah, but fucking, it's...
it was about 1987. I went to Melbourne and that, and I was dabbling in graffiti, obviously way before all that. But I made a conscious decision to get into graffiti a lot more seriously, so I had to sort of choose a tag, and then I was just going through the dictionary, and got to F, found FOE, and then played around with the spelling, and originally it was PHOA.
That's what I thought. So you have tagged PHOA.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and the idea there was sort of like a woe, sort of hoax or sort of situation, pronunciation. But then people started just saying PHOA, and that gave me the shits.
PHOA.
Yeah. So that's why I just dropped the A. And I must say, I dropped it bloody, mate, like 30 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's funny when you meet people for the first time and that, whatever they're writing at the time and that is what you remember them by. So all the older heads and that obviously met me years ago and that still put the A on the N, when they're writing things or, whatever the hell. They always add the A because that's when they knew me. Yeah. So that's just interesting, but yeah. And then like the whole Vietnamese noodles and all that sort of stuff, like of course there are Vietnamese people in Adelaide back then, and my mum's from Mansell Park and that, which is Vietnamese
Asian community,
sort of dominating sort of area and that, not as much as it is now sort of thing and that, but still, and but yeah, like it wasn't a big thing, faux soup here or whatever, I probably wouldn't have gone with the whole faux tag perhaps, but
it's a sick name.
In a way, I've sort of had it from my point of view before. They've had it in a way before it hit prominence in Adelaide anyway, and that. So I'm sticking with it. I'm not changing.
I think it's a fucking
if people
sick
think
tag.
It's noodle soup or whatever, man, good on them.
I like it. It's just odd because I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that has like a 3-letter tag, and like you said, it'd be heaps hard when you're planning your piece to like.
I was thinking about it the other day. Cab, he's 3 letters. And there's obviously quite a few others out there.
But like you said, when you were pacing up with your boys and there's like a 4, 4, 4.
You just got to adapt your style to sort of stretch things out a bit and that, And I don't mind that anyway, you know. So that's cool.
What's your favourite kind of It's fucking weird because I'm a chef and I hate when people ask what's your favourite fucking thing to cook. It's like, what's your favourite style to write?
I suppose I've always straight away, mate. Public style, as they call it. And that,
Public style.
Yeah, the more legible sort of style on that.
Public.
I just like stuff that's easy to read. I think it's cool.
Yeah, see,
because I'm heavily influenced.
Easy to read is so important to me.
Yeah, but at the same time, wild style is really what it's all about.
Is it?
Yeah, a good wild style.
I can't.
But then, don't be confused that don't be fooled that a piece that's easy to read or something or other was easy to paint.
Public style would obviously.
Public style, I think the mistakes can stand out a hell of a lot more. You make a mistake or whatever on that, and everyone can see it, mate. There's no smoke and mirrors. You do a wild style, and you might do something a bit wrong on that. And maybe you're the only one as the artist that knows it was ever wrong in the first place. No one else picks it up.
So this bloke to me,
a lot more forgiving.
This bloke to me is the best graffiti artist I've ever seen. But I've always had this thing with graffiti that I love art, so I lean on the more heavy artistic style of graffiti, where it could almost just be a mural artist. But this bloke here, Caesar, is probably one of the biggest freaks I've ever seen with a can. He's just so creative. But then it's hard but he still does panels. Like, I don't know if they're legal panels, but
no, I think there's bits and pieces of all sorts going on that, and it does demonstrate that he's very active, and he's really putting a great deal of thought into every piece he does. You could never accuse this guy of doing the same piece all the time. No two ever look the same.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's very. But he's
obviously, he's got a really artistic, as you say, sort of mind and that behind it all, and yeah.
Did you ever get into characters?
Yeah, I've done a few characters.
Characters is a very funny thing with graffiti artists because a lot of people fucking really hate on characters.
Why?
I don't know. I think
the bottom line isn't that, man. If you do a piece in that with a character, if you did a piece and a character for every piece in that, man, you're going to get recognised.
Yeah,
it's quite an achievement, and I think to a certain degree in that, it's a level of achievement also. You do pieces all the time and larger ones or whatever and that, and then characters and backgrounds and it's a progressive sort of thing in that,
Perfect example was like Jay Tuski. He threw that up in maybe 3 seconds.
Yeah.
He's just
and then again, there are artists and there are vandals.
He's a great doodlist.
And Josh is a complete artist, mate, and he's got that pop art sort of look to his artwork and that as well, and that. And
very politically driven as well.
Yeah.
In his style.
It's all thought-provoking, stuff. It's not just nonsense.
I appreciate.
Yeah.
I appreciate when you look at a piece and it's like, I don't agree with it, but like, good on him. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, what would you say, what was your biggest inspiration graffiti-wise? Style-wise?
So what, person?
No, if you had to put a person on it, you could. That's hard. I know that would be a hard fucking answer.
But honestly, probably the two guys I went to school with in that, man, Cage and ABSK. I was heavily influenced, they sort of, even reluctantly, took me under their wing and showed me the ropes. And we became friends later on in that, but, it was probably a bit annoying to start with. But, they were my greatest sort of influences, really. And those guys were influenced by Scene in New York and heavily sort of New York influence, which is a cool thing and that, and, yeah.
What we were talking about in the car was interesting, that it's when you caught the train here, you were looking at pieces and it's really hard for you to piece together the person behind the graffiti.
Yeah.
Like, and you were saying, is there even 13-year-olds that go out and fucking bomb shit?
Yeah, I just wonder what goes. Things just changed so much, Like, when we were younger, there was only, honestly, I don't think people really understand this, There were times when I think graffiti in Adelaide was really struggling to survive. Quite honestly, there were times, I reckon, when there must have been 50 riders in total throughout the whole state. And some of them, weren't that active. And really it's a handful of people who are really, really holding it together on that, And there was a good 2-3 years like that, before things sort of picked up a bit more on that and other people joined the ranks and got into it a bit in that, But everyone knew one another. We knew everything that was done because we were that into it as well. Not only were we out, like, racking the paint and all that sort of adventure side of it, and that you're out documenting what you've done the night before and seeing other people's stuff. And there is no looking on the net and that. You're going to have to go and see it and that. So that's going to require legwork and that, And then you're bombing on the way out to the piece and you're bombing on the way back and you might visit a shop or two and rack some paint and that. So again, it's all part of another extended adventure. And yeah, again, you just live in the whole thing. But we knew everybody that was doing everything. There weren't too many bloody surprises. What's that new tag? Who's that guy, So, yeah. But these days, and that, again, there's like this generation gap sort of thing and that. I see all these things and that. I see so much. I've got no idea who did it. And I can't always tell by the quality of the artwork or anything on that, And then I think to myself when I see some of this, was that some of these other younger characters that I've seen in paint shops and that, tentatively buying paint and that, when I've been in there buying paint also or something or other and that, Is this what goes on? Is this where it gets used? I don't know. Was everyone using that at home in the shed now with the permission of their parents because it's a lot more accepted than it used to be or something or other, or, or are they taking them down to the Morford Street Bridge or something or other? I don't know what's going on. It's just interesting. Yeah. But, at 12 and 13 and that, we're really investigating all sorts of stuff on that. And I just wonder whether they're doing the same thing here or does everyone just seem to morph as a semi-created graffiti writer at the age of 25? And, and again, when I was younger, there's one pattern I always sort of paid attention to was... some people might, and again, myself is a good example of it as well. You have a tentative go at graffiti for a couple of years and that, and you might have a bit of a breather or something or other, and then you either come back hard or something or other, or you don't come back at all. So quite often when you see someone who's semi-accomplished and that, and you go, where the hell's this bloke been? And you end up going, he actually used to write such and such 2 years ago. You go, I remember those shit tags.
Yeah.
But he went away, regrouped and came back. And that's how it's done, and that's how we were sort of taught also that you're supposed to be practicing this stuff behind closed doors and you don't make it so public and that until you got something to show and tell of a certain calibre. I
really, really, really want to do one piece.
Yep.
I've always been infatuated with letters. Like I have me and my sister actually. My sister probably is better than me, but I've always been obsessed with handwriting. Mostly like calligraphy and ever since I was very young. And I thought it was just like a real fucking autistic trait of mine because I will sit down and I'll just, at work, I'll have a pen and I'll just write the same letter for an hour. Just without knowing, I'll just fucking write one letter. And I've always been like that. Have you seen
those wide nozzles you can get these days?
No.
So you get these crazy wide nozzles. I don't know.
For the like the more calligraphy style of graffiti?
So basically you could whack one of those on a big bloody heavy duty can, like a baseball bat sort of looking thing and that, and just do one massive big calligraphy
piece
word and use that as your basis. I've seen people do this, you just do one massive big sort of calligraphy piece and then you outline it and you give it a shadow or whatever.
I've always wanted to try it.
Do whatever the hell you want with it, but it could be the basis sort of thing and that if you're into this calligraphy sort of style of things and that.
But I really want...
Piece of shit out first outline in a different way, it's going to end up being the same thing. It'll be a lot easier.
I want the first thing I do, because it'll be the last thing I ever do, I want it to be a train.
When we did the first whole car plea, the bloke I did it with, that was the only train he ever did.
I want my first piece to be a train.
Yeah, no, it's... yeah.
I want to do it for my channel as well. I want a video. I want to record the whole process.
Bid 738, I think maybe his first piece was a train. At the Lonsdale Yarn.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah, I've got a vague recollection of that.
I have this vision. I've always wanted to do a video. I've always wanted to do a video of going on a mission. But I want to strap a GoPro to myself and record a whole mission.
See, this is a strange thing, mate. There's this modern phenomenon of
because
people...
you're recording yourself
recording all this shit, man. We were just wrapped to get a photograph of the end product, man. And if you could get one at night and then get one during the day and that happy days and that, mate, that's it. Let's not press it.
No, I want to record myself getting arrested.
Get the friggin' drones out and that, and follow the train along and all this sort of shit. And yeah, like some of this footage is really, really cool.
It's hard though because if you were born in the 2000s, would you be doing the same thing?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, mate. I just don't think you should be recording this sort of stuff like that. Yeah, it's nice and all that sort of shit, but I don't want to sell the DVD down the track or anything, so to speak. And that, I don't need that for the photo album. Again, I'm happy with a photo.
Do you have an extensive photo album?
Yeah, a pretty extensive photo collection.
I was
going to
say it'd be fucking excellent to see your photo album. It'd be like a trip.
But you know, again, you know, like when we were younger and that, you know, we knew everybody that was painting everything and that, you know, and we took the effort to go out and see these things, and at the same time I would photograph them. And, you know, as a consequence, you know, I got a fair whack of them and that, you know, but there was a time when I had every piece that was going and in certain periods of any distinction, from my point of view, and then, you know, maybe after a certain period, not so much. And then certainly you got the analog photograph aspect of it, and that turned into a digital aspect of it. And then I get old and grumpy these days as well, and that, you know, and I only photograph the stuff that I do and my mates do because I don't care about other people so much. And I don't see so much either in that, you know, but if I do see something that's pretty cool and that, I'll take a snap of it for sure and add it to the collection, so to speak.
Yeah.
But again, these days a lot of it's digital. And look, you know, I could talk forever about stuff like this, you know. I guess I really am a little bit sort of concerned about this whole digital sort of era of everything. I think we're going to lose a lot of our history. You know, and again, I'm one about history. I've been a custodian of images and graffiti.
We could probably... we're very dependent...
Yeah, just got to print them off, man, and no one does. And if they don't print them off, they're going to be lost.
We're pretty dependent on the grid staying up forever.
And there's, you know, the cloud or whatever, and hard drives. These things are going to screw up, boys and girls, and with it are going to go our history. You got to print them off. You got to have your own albums. Stash them at your mum's house or whatever goes on.
Print off your shit.
But yeah, that's my advice. Even if it's just your own stuff and that, you know, but do it because yeah, you'll regret it in the long run, man.
I am just gonna pause it because I need to take a piss like a Russian racehorse right now. But we'll be back immediately. We are back, and as I was taking a piss, I put a photo up on Instagram of your tag, and I just didn't say anything, and I got fucking 40 people message me, "Did you get phone?" Yeah. And I got one young bloke from Melbourne who says, ask him if he ever placed copies of his book Wildfire around Adelaide for people to find.
Yeah, no, that was obviously part of you know, the sales process of when the book was available, and it has been available for quite some time, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry about that one.
How many have you stockpiled at your house?
Oh, no. I can neither confirm or deny.
You can neither confirm or deny. Maybe we'll get a theseshwithsav copy.
You know, but obviously, you know, I hang on to a few on that. But yeah, no.
It's a very sought after book. Why didn't you read?
Oh, you know, well, the funny thing isn't that, you know, like it's, you know, at the time when you're trying to get rid of them and that, you know, it's the shoe's on the other foot. You just go, I got to get rid of all these things and that, and no one's buying them and that sometimes. You know, and you might be only selling 5 a week or something or other, you know, and if you were selling 5 a week, that'd be good. You know, but, you know, you got to keep prodding people, and I don't like asking people to keep, you know, buying things and that, you know. It gets bloody a bit annoying and that, you know. I don't want to sound like a broken record or anything.
I'm thinking
and then once they're all gone and that, everybody bloody wants one, but I was sort of, you know, I was warned this would happen. And then also, you know, honestly, people need to understand this as well. Even if one was available and that, they're not at the prices that they used to be. They're far bloody from it. And when people hear the prices and that, they don't want anything to do with it, you know. So the serious buyers only. They're a minimum $250.
$250?
Yeah.
Really?
Minimum.
Fuck yeah. Well, although you have to capitalise on your...
But that's not brand new ones. If you can ever find one, you know, as a resale value or whatever, and someone's got one for sale and that, you know, and they crop up occasionally, that's what they're going for, $250. And if it was a special edition, it's $350. And if it happens to be signed or whatever and that, and what degree of signing or whatever and that, you know, that might skyrocket the price even further. And that's just the nature of this sort of stuff. And why isn't it reprinted? Well, the bottom line isn't that, you know, I don't think people understand a lot of this sort of stuff. You know, there are different paper prices at times. Like, prices fluctuate basically with the whole printing costs or something or other. It is very expensive to print a book in the first place, and I won't go into any of that sort of stuff, but it is very expensive. And
I also think reprints take away a lot of the, like, reprints devalue as well.
Yeah, there's all that aspect of it and that.
Because
but yeah, look, I'd love to share the story further and that, you know, and I don't think it would do the price of the book any damage and that, you know, or whatever and that, you know.
Need to start a podcast, lad.
We could take a hiatus or whatever and that for a bit and that, you know, and get back to the $250 price tag later on or whatever and that, you know, but it'll work out right in the long run. But yeah, essentially, if we reprinted it or whatever and that, you know, it'd be more expensive than it was the first time round.
Yeah.
And I'm not going anywhere near it. And that, it was a gamble. It was an educated sort of gamble the first time round. It would be a very uneducated gamble to do it the second time round. Unless, quite frankly, everybody out there that bought one the first time round wanted to go and buy another copy. And I think that would be an incredibly hard sell to get across the line.
Yeah, and again,
everybody wants to have the opportunity to buy a book at a cheap price and that, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of financial work that goes into it. And, mate, we had them for quite some time, over 18 months or whatever, for sale on that. We bloody spruiked the hell out of it before everybody knew that could possibly know on that. And if you didn't get one, I'm sorry. I warned you. That's all I can say.
When did you bring it out?
I can't remember the date so much off the top of my head and that, it's all a bit of a blur these days.
Within the last decade?
Yeah. 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
5.
maximum or something or other, something like that.
COVID.
It was, no, it wasn't affected by all that, so it was prior to all that.
So it would have been 5.
So again, I was sort of fortuitous in that respect also on that, because we couldn't, forecast that. So yeah, it was prior to that. So yeah, no, it was...
How fun.
Lucky.
I don't say fun actually, because I didn't get affected by it at all, and it was actually very financially fucking viable for me. It was actually very financially beneficial for me, I would say. COVID, it was such an interesting time that I would just love to revisit for a week. It was just so peculiar. Nothing like that will ever happen in our lifetime again. Ever.
Well, let's hope not, but yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath, mate.
It won't. Oh, actually, the election's coming up in November, so...
mate, I think anything's possible.
What year were you born?
72.
72. Yeah, so you were right there for the 80s. 80s would have been, actually, that's a pretty good time to grow up. That would have been the best time to grow up. Fucking fashion was the best. Everything was cheap. 80s fashion's back. Everything's back now. Everyone dresses like they're from the fucking 80s now.
Funny thing about fashion, when I look back in that, the whole sort of sporty look or whatever, even what I'm wearing today sort of thing and that, we invented that. I don't think people realise that.
It is.
Not me and not my crew or anything.
But the 80s.
The 80s our fashion. Era, we created all that, It was frowned upon to dress like this when we were younger.
Bro, TNs and a fucking... A full tracksuit with a pair of TNs and a cap is the freshest look you can have.
And then later on, we got into wearing Country Road and Jag and all the rest of it because we were going out racking and that. We wanted to look sort of nice and that. But we got that idea from the Sydney guys as well. But again, the whole sort of hip-hop community, if you want to call it that, again...
Was it Country Road?
Christened all that sort of stuff.
Country Road and Ralph Lauren, were they the most prized?
Ralph Lauren wasn't... I was around in that, but... Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a big thing, Ralph Lauren back then. It was I don't know. From my mind, and that was a bit more Lacoste going on and a bit more Country Road. I think Country Road was more accessible than Jag. Because again, these are sort of Australian, sort of local sort of brands to a certain degree with shop outlets and that. Other things like these other brands and that, Sydney, yes. Adelaide, not so much. We didn't have these sorts of shops. These shops wouldn't open up in Adelaide. We didn't have the demographics for it and that. We had a Lacoste shop for a few years or something or other that closed. Because again, they're not selling anything. This is before internet shop and way before all that. Still wasn't making any money. Certain areas, you're probably more likely to get one at Burnside Shopping Centre than you are somewhere else, perhaps. You might find Lacoste in a sports store there or something or other, I think, like we did. But yeah, it was hard to get hold of some of this stuff. And yeah, the Australian brand's a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
There's a bit of Lacoste that used to go on in Sports Girl. There's some sort of crossover that going on there.
There's nothing more Australiana than a fucking Nike tracksuit, bro, and TNs on. What's your thought? Because it's funny because you were a little rat bag when you were a kid, obviously. We won't go into the intricacies, but I imagine you would have been a little rat bag being in the scene. And now you've grown up and you have a child, and now he's probably around my age or a few years younger, and now you're a grandfather. So you've kind of gotten a taste of all of the different eras. What's your take on the whole AKA movement where kids think it's cool to dress like that when they're from the suburbs?
Oh no, I just don't know much. I don't know much about Australian stuff at all.
Mate, there's these kids, bro. There's these kids that will grow up in, say, the equivalent of like a Burnside, go to a fucking 80 grand a year school when they wear a bum bag and TNs.
I just see it as sort of a I just see it as a rebellious sort of thing, and that, obviously, and that, and I sort of, from an older sort of person's point of view, and that, I have a bit of a chuckle, and then would chuckle to myself, and that, but I just sort of, let boys be boys, so to speak, and that, just let them go on that. They'll grow out of it, or whatever. Every year has got their own sort of thing going on like that. Personally, I think it looks a bit silly. I'll give you one sort of one of my insights with it all on that. I wonder with the whole bum bag thing and that, man. I wonder what is going on there, because when I was younger with writing and that, that's my background, obviously. And it's about not red lighting yourself.
No,
it's about trying to get away with as much
hot
shit as possible on that without getting picked up. And these guys look red hot, man. And these bum bags. Why have you got a bum bag? I mean, okay, the practicalities of it are something along the lines of perhaps
there's no practicality. You can fit everything in your pocket.
You don't have pockets in your shorts or something or other and that, But other than that, what do you got? A packed lunch in there with a fruit box or something? Like what? Or was it just all your drugs or something? Again, you're red lighting yourself. Like, what the hell is going on there? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's funny because, do you know what?
It's just, please pull me over, ask me where I've been, where I'm going, have I got any warrants, where's your ID? You just got to be asking for it, surely.
It's the bum
That's
bags.
why we wore country road and all that sort of stuff as much as possible normal. To blend in.
Little did the cops know you ganked everything.
Yeah, it wore thin in the end, but, it lasted for a while.
What was that bloke? There's a bloke in America that started a movement, and he, ganked the most Ralph Lauren ever. And Ralph Lauren ended up collaborating with him. He was a graffiti artist.
Yeah, right.
And a rapper, I believe.
Oh, it's, I think I know who you're talking about.
And they have a documentary about him, and he ganked, $250,000 worth of Ralph Lauren in a year in America.
Yeah, right. It's good stuff. He's got good taste.
But now Ralph Lauren work with him. They're you're a part of the culture.
Yeah.
Graffiti, for people who don't know, plays a massive part in modern day culture that you would never expect. There's massive things in graffiti. A lot of your favorite artists and all that, they all started from graffiti.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, I hear bits and pieces of that.
And it depends what kind of art you're talking about, because art these days can either be phenomenal or it can be fucking embarrassing.
Well, it's a generational thing as well, and that, I've heard stories about people going painting and that, and the cops pick them up and that.
Can you just come a little bit closer to the mic? Thank you. No, that's perfect.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. I've heard stories of people getting picked up by coppers and that after pieces and that, and then the cops turning around and going, oh yeah, I used to go to school with such and such, as a writer and that as well, and that, and they go, yeah, have a good night, man, off they go, sort of thing. So it's a generational thing. Well, again, we've come sort of full circle with this. We're interacting with another generation, and there's a lot more acceptance and everything going on with graph, even in Adelaide, as as backward as it is.
People say Adelaide's backwards, but I'm such a ride or die for Adelaide. I would be willing to get into a fucking fight with someone if I went out in Melbourne and they were talking shit about Adelaide. That's how much I fucking love this state.
I must admit, I stand up for a bit. I can remember.
I'm sick of being belittled by other states because I'm from Adelaide. One day,
I remember hearing these blokes in an airport queue and that, just going, "Oh, yeah, Adelaide shit, blah blah blah." What are you doing here, mouthful? Just turn around, and piss off, you dickhead.
Yeah, fuck off. Go back to Melbourne. Go pay $1 million for a fucking.
I don't want you here, mate. Go.
Yeah, fuck off. Listen to Dan Andrews. Why would you want to come here? Go listen to him.
Yeah.
You fuckwit. And I have so much respect for. I love Melbourne. As a chef and as a food lover, Melbourne.
I think they've killed Melbourne, man. It used to be way better.
Yeah,
I was thinking about it the other day, and that
everything
used to be way better.
Everything used to be way better.
I remember going there with my dad and that, and we used to go down certain streets and that. The main thoroughfare sort of ones in the city and that. They had these cafes, and they had all little booths with little bloody jukebox things at the end of them and that, and you can select your songs and all this sort of stuff. It was like, a leftover from the 60s and that,
What's your thought of Hosier Lane? A lot of people have heaps of mixed opinions about it. I like it. It's a nice tourist attraction.
yeah, look, all that sort of legal stuff and that sort of irks me to a certain degree in that, you know, because, you know, you sort of get this street art versus graffiti sort of thing that goes on a little bit in that, you know, and essentially the public only likes it these days and that because they're getting what they want. That's the way I read it and that, you know, and by that I mean like they're getting the faces and the floral arrangements and all this sort of stuff that goes on that. They're not getting hardcore wild styles and that, you know. So yeah, that's the difference with it and that. So, you know, as far as all that cool sort of factor and street art factor of Hosier Lane and that, you know, and obviously at times there were some great pieces that get painted there as well. But as far as all that goes and the wedding photos and stuff, yeah, great. I painted in Union Lane, which is off the mall thing there, Burke Street Mall, and you know, and they nicknamed that Urine Lane or whatever because that's what it smells like because everyone pisses in there and that, you know. So yeah, I don't know.
Do you know I went to
all that fantastic.
I hadn't been to Melbourne for the longest time. Just during COVID, obviously I couldn't go. So I went to Melbourne. When did I go? I went this year. I went at the start of this year for the first time in maybe 4 years. And that was the longest time since transiting to Melbourne because I used to go like 2 times a year to party.
Yeah.
Because my passion when I was younger was partying. Like I just used to... How you felt about graffiti, I felt about partying. My boys would get a fresh batch of pingers or like just something and I would be like, let's fucking get it. And I'd go on a 5-day bender.
Right.
And that was my passion. I used to love partying. And we used to go to Melbourne a lot. And I went to the start of this year. And I don't know if it's because I'm older or if it's because Melbourne has changed. But when I was out in the city at night, I was like, this ain't it. Like, this just is not it. Like, it's terrible. Like, there's just fucking homeless people everywhere and it's sketchy and everyone thinks they're hard and you're looking at these groups of fucking people and they're fucking all wearing bum bags and they're looking at you like they want to stab you, but you don't even know if they're from a private school. Like, you just don't know. Like, a lot of these kids, they're from a private school. They never fucking stab you. But, like, it's such a weird place to navigate now.
Well, when I used to go there was a bit more culture going on, I felt, you know, and there's a bit more of the old Melbourne still going on, and I spent a lot of time around Fitzroy and that as well, so, you know,
Fitzroy's
the yuppie
very
sort of
cool
stuff, and yeah, it was cool, man. It wasn't that violent aspect to it at all, but I just think in Melbourne, you know, it's just got too big. There's just too much going on. There's too many people there. There's too much concrete, too much steel. It's lost its character a bit. You know, it's going to overtake Sydney and all that sort of stuff, as they say.
I don't think it will. It's Sydney though. Sydney's a fucking... Do you know what started all of this? No, I wouldn't even say what started it, but what pushed this movement with this Eshe culture the most, where...
What sort of... culture? I'm just confused.
It's a culture
It's a culture?
It's a
I
culture.
thought it was just an outfit.
No, it's a culture.
What's the culture?
It's an aesthetic. It's like it's the whole Eshe movement. It's an aesthetic, and it's all. A lot of it's based on. I would say 1-4. Are you familiar with 1-4? 1-4 are a group of lads from Mount Druitt in Sydney.
Yeah.
Mount Druitt. You're familiar with Mount Druitt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hard cunts. Very, very hard. Like, but they... Are you familiar with drill music? Drill?
No.
I will play it after I can't play it on the podcast because I'll get copyright striked. But drill music's a subgenre of rap. And it's like a grime, like UK rap. And it's got a very certain aesthetic
But these guys just... I won't use the word copy, but are they just sort of along the lines of like chav sort of stuff in the UK?
Yes, yeah, kind of chavvy, but they brought...
And look, you know, like I'm not really into hip hop. I'm even less into British hip hop. Honestly, I'm getting in trouble here, but there isn't much good British hip hop going on at all, man.
Oh, there is. No, you're in trouble.
Mate.
So this
If it's not hijack, mate, I'm not really interested.
This aesthetic here, like, do you know what I mean? A group of boys all around from the area. Anyway, these boys produce some songs, and
any of them right?
They went viral, and they're all in and out of jail, but
Right.
their songs went viral, like insane, and it started a subgenre of these kids who think that going to jail is cool. Do you know what I mean? And so you got these kids from these private schools that have never been in a punch-on or never been in a... There's a difference between being in a punch-on and being in a situation where, oh, fuck, some of us could die tonight. And these kids...
Is it like some rich kids' entertainment?
These guys aren't, though. They're from Mount Druitt. Mount Druitt's legit. But they started off a subgenre where they kids think this is cool. And it's funny. It's like showing my dad. It's like showing my dad, and he'd be like, "What the fuck?" I had to dodge bombs when I was fucking.
Doesn't make a great deal of sense. That's all right. I remember having conversations with my father as much the same.
You never understand. What was it when you were a kid? Were you listening to music and your dad would be like, "Turn that shit off"?
No. I was pretty fortunate with music and that when I was younger.
What was the music when you were a kid? What were you into?
Oh, well, yeah, probably the same stuff I am now, quite frankly. The mother and father were separate, so, they're into a lot of the same sort of stuff, a lot of the same sort of stuff that, the same era of parents are into, with, Bob Dylan and the Bee Gees and the Beatles and, often you're either Beatles or Rolling Stones to the man and that, and I think my mum she was a bit more of both, quite frankly. My dad was Beatles. My dad was right into classical music.
Classical.
Yeah, loved classical music. And my mum was into Black Sabbath, Led Zepp. Yeah,
Black Sabbath,
got
one
all
of
the
the...
cool sort of heavy metal sort of music influences from her. But there's Everly Brothers, Patsy Cline.
Is that your style now? Like more just...
Yeah, I listen to all of it. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I was very fortunate. So my sister is 18 years older than me, and my brother's 15. So I was very fortunate that I grew up with their music. So my sister, her favourite band was Kiss, as you can tell. And I
think my mum went to the Kiss concert. I was trying to think about that the other day. I reckon she did.
But back in the day, that music just held so much more weight than music does now. Like music...
Kiss was massive when I was a kid. They were massive.
Huge.
I still like Kiss. I've got a few of the albums and that.
But people used to buy the albums.
They were massive.
People used to buy albums of
they
things.
They were like the Beatles sort of... I would sort of think of the era sort of thing when I was in primary school, and that's when it was,
I still
the Kiss cards and all the merchandise that went on.
I think I'm too young for the Beatles wagon. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean that's way before my time and that, but Beatles is timeless as far as I'm concerned.
I don't enjoy. I've never sat down and listened to them.
Never,
ever.
Well, you should really, because that's the basis of a lot of stuff that's going on these days and that, all these guys, Like, again, it's about a history sort of thing and learn your history and the musical aspects of it's no different.
I don't think I've ever heard a Beatles song.
Of course you have, everyone has. And I think you probably hear a few, probably know the words to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I think you've listened to the wrong podcast.
What do you think? What do you think? In my opinion, so the greatest band of all time, in my opinion, will always be Metallica.
Yeah, I wouldn't have one.
But would you have a favourite? So you're on an island, stranded, you got one person's discography. Who do you got?
Jesus.
You got an iPod, back when iPods used to just play music. You have one band or person's whole discography on it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When you sort of said the whole discography, I was thinking maybe the Beatles because it's a fair whack.
Really?
And there's a lot to choose from, just from the purely sort of statistical side of it. And that, if you want to have a complete catalogue on that, like the Beatles would be up there and that, because you have a lot to choose from. Other bands or people and that, not so much. Oh, look, no, I wouldn't. I haven't got a favourite movie. I haven't got a favourite sort of album or any of that sort of thing either. And that, I could tell you what I don't want in the island. Well, no techno, thanks very much. None of that sort of shit on the island. That's sort of something I would not want as part of the discography.
I just feel like music. I was talking to you before about. I was just sending a message. I was talking to you before about how it's so hard to find good music now. Like I almost for actually during COVID, I reckon I maybe listened to maybe like 10 minutes of music for 4 years because I was so infatuated with podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was actually learning.
I think honestly,
Because it's so hard to find good music.
I sort of think the opposite in that, in this day and age, like there's YouTube and that, and they have all these suggestions and that, and you can just search all these sort of genres. And this is the sort of thing I say to my son on that, when it comes to movies or whatever and that. Books, whatever. Find yourself a good author. Find yourself a good director. Find yourself your favourite actor. Research every single one of anything they ever did. Watch them. And in this day and age, you have access to any of it. You can just Google any book, any movie whatsoever. When I was a kid, you just couldn't find these things to watch them in the first place. But now you can see anything. So you can sort of just research, so to speak, and investigate anything you want.
Are you a film fan?
Yeah. More so when I was a bit younger, and that I was way more into it. But yeah, absolutely, my father taught me an appreciation of good cinema.
Because I can tell from your Instagram, you're very good at documenting and graffiti. Like with graffiti, you're very good at documenting it.
A lot of people don't know. I've actually I won't say too much in that, but because I do have a private life to a certain degree. But probably people think that like graffiti is a massive part of my life and that, and it's the only part of my life and that, and it's sort of not. There's obviously a family side of it, there's a work side of it, and that.
It's just the side you excelled at it extremely.
I'm actually I'm very much into militaria. So I'm into like World War II, Air Force.
Really?
Yeah, people don't even know this. I'm into way more into World War II, Australian Air Force, sort of bits and pieces and that. And
specifically Australian Air Force?
When I was in Western Australia a while back and that, I was talking to Shime. And Shime goes, I'm into cars. I just happen to do graffiti. And I thought, that's what I'm like, mate. I'm into militaria. I just happen to do graffiti.
How much military? When you say militaria, you mean like?
I'm into sort of uniforms and insignia and what these guys were wearing. Or as far as Air Force goes and that, the avionics and all this sort of stuff. Oxygen mask, blah blah blah. But there's all this sort of online sort of forums and that and sort of networking that goes on. I with another bloke in the UK, we don't have it anymore and that, but we had a forum we ran for a number of years and that with over like 2,500 members from all over the world, of probably the most elite, pretty close to the most elite sort of military collectors. And
with militaria, do you also you obviously love the history of?
Yeah,
war.
It's the history behind the item, the person that wore it. It's the history of our Air Force in this country in general. It's long and involved.
Have you ever seen it's so funny you said that because I was obsessed. I love history. I just love history in general. I'm not smart in that I can't recite things. I'm not the best at reciting things but I'm obsessed with history. There is this bloke on YouTube. His name's Steve MRE.
Right.
He eats military rations from World War One.
I've seen some of these videos.
Mate, he opens some military rations from World War One.
And Boer War on that, mate.
It's so interesting seeing what these poor cunts would have to just eat. And being in a world war, it's much like the serial killer thing. It's just so fascinating seeing what my granddad had to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or your granddad would have been World War One days, or just after. He would have been World War Two.
Yeah.
World War One was 1920.
1914,
1918. No shit. Yeah. It's do you
but
think?
But my military sort of background on that is one of research and that, and it's one of recording. It's one of accurate documenting. It's not just taking people's words for things. It's about cross-referencing. So this is sort of why I've got this sort of background. The same sort of thing with graffiti. It's cross-referencing. It's not taking anyone's word for things and that. It's documenting things properly in that, and then sharing information with other like-minded individuals also.
Yeah.
So it also, it's all part and parcel in that, and I love reading and that's all part of it also. And again, I've touched on it a few times, that I like to read and that rather than podcast sort of situations. Because we live in an era, unfortunately, of just what I would call sort of crowd-funded research. It's going to be very dangerous, boys and girls, and that anything, any sort of answers to anything that anybody wants to know, and that they just Google it. Well, that's all manipulated to a certain degree, in that, or is it? So massive question marks over everything and that. So, and the whole thing with the podcast and that, that's probably a better source of information, because hopefully 9 times out of 10 it's straight from the horse's mouth. But a lot of this other sort of stuff, not so much. And not every book that was written, prior to whatever the bloody hell date you want to come up with is accurate also.
Yeah.
But, you need a number of these publications to assert a bloody educated opinion of anything.
You would...
Just don't take people's words for shit, double everything,
cross-reference everything.
And there's AI shit, as if that's going to be used for,
I'm obsessed with AI.
Nice purposes or anything. And of course it's not, mate. It's human nature.
I'm obsessed with AI.
Yeah. But, we used to live in an era that you could sort of believe to a certain degree what you read and what you see, and now it's not going to be so much. But of course, everything's been manipulated from day one anyway, and that with the Bible and all sorts of crap that goes on and that,
The Bible's the biggest one.
Whoever paid the bill manipulated
the Bible's the biggest
story,
one.
it's that simple. So, this has been going on since time immemorial.
You would really, really, really enjoy listening to the podcast I've done with this bloke called Tom Piro. He's one of my best mates. I've done about 6 with him. I'm very good friends with him, so I do them often, and we have a mutual love in fighting. But he is the most learned person I've ever met. Yeah. And he just reads books every week. 4 books every week, and he's so learned on war. And I didn't even know back in World War II.
Sorry, mate, I'm going to have to go for a
You need to take a piss? Yeah. No, that's fair.
Sorry, mate, it gets hard when I get up.
So do I. So, we were talking about the World War, and I was talking about my mate Tom. And we had I think it was like 3 episodes ago, or our last episode we were talking about, he told me, because obviously everyone knows about concentration camps, and just how I got into serial killers, I got into dictators. And there's this podcast series which is fucking phenomenal. It might be the best podcast series I've ever heard. It's called Real Dictators.
Right.
And it focuses about 6 episodes, about 2 hours each, on dictators. But he goes so intricately into their lives that it's insane. And my mate Tom was telling me there was the concentration camps, but then there was the killing fields. And I'd never heard about the killing fields.
Is Cambodia?
I believe so. And the killing fields, they would literally dig a fucking hole the size of you can't even imagine it, the size of this hole. And they would just funnel people into it, and they would just shoot them. And it was like, what the hell? And the girl you just met, she just went to Austria, and she went to Hitler's Nest on the, she went on
Director's Garden.
Yeah. And it's like, fuck. And I've had mates that have gone to the gas chambers, and
I've been to Auschwitz.
You have?
Yeah.
And so the size of the chambers isn't... when I was growing up, I always thought that they would be like this shed. Just a 8x4 shed. They're like fucking basketball stadiums. Are they big?
Yeah, look, well, the point of all that is, and that not too many original gas chambers or any of that sort of stuff exist. They're all blowing up at the end of the war.
But the ones that you visited...
And the ones you've revisited, they've been reconstructed.
Yeah, right.
They've been reconstructed accurately. I mean, this is where we sort of get into the conspiracy sort of theory aspect of all of this. And
it's money-making.
I've even heard people talk about, if you want to start doing the mathematics about, how many people it would take to fit in this, that, and the other, and that, and the residue of human remains, et cetera, doesn't amount to or does amount to. I'm not going to get. I don't know about any of that. And certainly aspects of Auschwitz have been reconstructed and that for for Schindler's List. Steven Spielberg paid to get a whole bunch reconstructed.
Really?
I mean, the majority of Auschwitz and that, and there's Auschwitz 1 and 2, which is just down the road from one another. I can't remember Auschwitz-Birkenau and Auschwitz 2 or something or other. I think that might be the distinctions. But you got two camps that are down the road from one another, and I think there might be more in the complex also. But it was basically part of a massive sort of area in that these camps are in. And so you go to like the main one with the famous train line and everything that goes through the gates and everything, and you end up in the at the end of the line and that, so to speak, and that with the selection of this, that, and the other. But all you see is just a massive expanse of the remnants of chimneys.
Yeah.
And just the sort of vague outline of a building. That's it, because they were all demolished once again at the end of the war and that, to try and remove traces of everything that was going on there and that. But, it does give you an idea of the expanse of all of it.
Did you get a
very... But, you just get a vibe from all of it. Regardless of what's going on, you get a vibe that something quite not that cool has happened here.
Dude, that's what I was going to say.
And it's not the sort of place, unless it's a complete brainwashing thing, but, it's not the sort of place you go yahooing around. It's like walking into a church or something and that. You got to be respectful and that, and you just get that sort of that feeling straight away and that you should be respectful. And
that's that's exactly what I was
going to say.
Some bad
stuff's happening here and that, man.
Did you
just do the right thing?
I don't believe in the afterlife. I don't believe in the afterlife as we know it. I don't believe in religion. But I do believe in energy. And there is some places you can go and you feel this fucking energy and it's just off. So when you go to, say, where there was a concentration camp, what is the feeling?
No, again, it's just one of reverence sort of thing on that, where you're just sort of respectful of everything going on that.
An atrocity has happened here.
But, I'm not saying I actually personally felt anything or anything on that. There's nothing like that going on that, But again... I understand history and that. I know read a great deal about it and that over the years and that. And then you finally get to see it firsthand and that, and you're weighing things up, and a lot of stuff's going through your head about what makes sense and what doesn't. And
do you dabble in conspiracy?
Not really. Other than and do you trust your government? No, of course you don't. How far do you trust them? That's another matter. There's a lot of things manipulated and all the rest of it. Of course they bloody are.
But that people would see that as conspiracy.
That's not a conspiracy. It's just fact.
There's people.
It's conspiracy, I suppose. I put that sort of stuff in the more weird and wonderful stuff.
Do you think COVID was orchestrated?
I don't think they were honest about everything. Let's put it that way.
Oh, they definitely weren't honest about everything. But do you think it was orchestrated, or do you think it was too well? People also give the government too much credit.
I'm a graffiti writer, mate. I'm rebellious straight away on that, so straight away I assess everything through those eyes. When the government says do anything and now I go, screw you, mate. That's my first thought straight away.
Yeah.
And that was my first thought with that.
But we won't go into...
You're pushing me into this, that and the other and that, and the more you're pushing out, the more I'm not going to do it, mate.
We won't go into the details of your personal life and your work and stuff. Were you deemed essential? Do you have to work during COVID?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I lead such a solitary life, unfortunately, it made no difference whatsoever, mate.
Do you still throw up? Oh, I don't know. You can tell me to fuck off, and you don't you can say you don't want to answer it, but do you still dabble in illegal walls?
Illegal?
Yeah.
No,
not at all. But so do you? When was the last time you threw up a piece?
I painted at all.
Yeah. Is it few and far between now for you?
It was a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've done a few recently. I didn't like them and that, so I don't show anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always do. I mean, there's a few on the books and that as well. There might be one next week and that, and there's a few others lined up and that. Yeah, no, it's going to be busy.
Have you ever painted? Do you paint or draw or anything, or has it always been just can on walls for you?
I draw, but only for pieces.
So you don't, but so... The wall and the can is your medium, 100%.
Pretty well, yeah. I paint a bit these days on labels, like paint old paper labels.
What paint do you use? You'd be a
probably the
pretty
better sort of stuff in that. I don't bother. Look, I just learned something over the years and that, not to just dabble in shit paint and that, I'm not a rich man or anything in that, but I do believe that if you pay a few dollars extra in that, you get a better result most of the time on that. So I just don't dabble in this shit annoying brands, so I'll probably just pay a few dollars extra in that and get some nice German paint. And there's a lot of good paint out there these days and that, and they're all priced pretty well the same. The colours aren't that bloody different. So, yeah, we're pretty spoilt these days.
Yeah.
I used to have sort of, favourites at different times, but the bottom line is, the reality of the situation is that, paint brands are just not available for all time, it seems, that they come and go. Different companies, the quality of a brand will differentiate over time also. And what was originally something that was good, 10 years later, and that may be crap and not worth going anywhere near in that, because it's all about profits and they cheapen the recipes of these things. And
one thing I want to do, I have been very selective with sponsors for this podcast. I don't care if I ever make money from this podcast. I just like doing the podcast. I really want a Graffiti, like a paint brand, to sponsor the pod so I can get a discount code for my listeners, because I know at least 45% of my listeners are graphers, at least. And
paint's pretty cheap these days anyway, I reckon.
how cheap though? Because it's fucking expensive just to eat.
Oh
now.
no, can't you get like a can for $5 or something these days? Can't you? Some of the cheaper ones or something.
Can you?
Oh, I think you can.
$5 now that I'm older
Maybe
seems
I'm
like
dreaming. I don't know.
$5 seems like fuck all now.
Yeah.
But when I was earning $280 a week, that's fucking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, when we were young, we were racking all of them, man. So I kind of, this whole buying your paint sort of concept is just a foreign sort of situation as well.
Do you know? I racked something for the first time in maybe 12 years the other day.
Yeah.
I just went to the shops. I went to Woolies and I wanted to buy saffron. Fuck Woolies. I don't give a fuck. I'll tell the story. I went to Woolies and I was like, I want to make this dish and I needed saffron. And they wanted to charge me $18 for it. And I was like, I'm not giving it to you. Like, I'm just not giving you this $18. And I just put it in my pocket and I felt like a mad dog. It was like I was 16 again. And I just fucking walked out and I felt terrible. I felt terrible after. I couldn't do it anymore, but that was when I was younger, I used to love ganking shit.
Mate, with the way they bloody charge prices these days, you pay for that long before you racked it, mate.
I don't condone it, but I don't disagree with people fucking racking shit from
I'll see
shops.
some pretty cool racking situations going on these days. I go through the city a bit and that, and there's people with trolleys and bags and all sorts of shit arguing points with security guards, and security guards won't get involved because
No, they can't.
everyone knows these rights these days and that, and you can't touch me and all this sort of stuff. So they let them go and they radio through the police, it seems, and that, so they hope they can get them down Rundle Mall or something. But yeah, the whole drama that kicks off, it happens with frightening regularity in the city, and it demonstrates one thing definitely in that, mate, that people are just pushing the boundaries and that and just trying to get away with whatever. I saw one bloke walk in one night and that, and he just grabbed 2 drinks, and he goes, I'm taking them. And he said it like really loudly and that, and just walked straight out again and that, and no one even stopped him.
So when I went to
It's like he was invisible.
I went to Perth,
Part of me just thought, power to you, brother.
I went to Perth 2 years ago, and I was staying in the city. 10 of us went for the UFC. I've been there for 5 minutes, bro, and I went to this bottle-o. It was in the city, but it was just on the outskirts. It would have been like North Terrace, but it was Darrow. And we went there, and I went to go open the fridge, and it was locked. It was chained up.
Right.
And the security guard next to me was like, I was like, what? And he's like, oh, you got to tell me what you want, because those Aboriginals out there are about to walk in and just rob this place. And I was like, what are you talking about? So he's like, watch this. And he opened it up for me because I told him what I wanted. These 4 Aboriginals walked in, bro. Just walked in, literally went shopping, like. And it's not. I'm not saying that like this is just what they were. They were Aboriginals. Like, I'm not gonna. If they were white, I would say they're white. Like, and they just walked in, grabbed it, and just walked out. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, it's better just to give them that than because they will kill us. Like,
Yeah, no one wants to get stabbed up over bloody...
thank you.
Yeah, no one wants to get stabbed up over, a loaf of bread or whatever, or a bottle of booze or anything like that.
But, and I'm not saying that, like, Zara, can you close the door, please? Thank you. I wasn't saying that because they were Aboriginal. It was just like, I've seen fucking white people and everything do the same. It was just so confronting.
We used to do it.
It was so confronting to go there and you weren't even able to open up a fucking door. Like, because they knew they were going to get robbed. It's fucking wild.
Yep, no, it goes on, mate. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. But so, in the graffiti community now, do you feel like you have some sort of, I wouldn't say authority, but you have some sort of thing to be a role model for the younger community?
Oh, no.
Not at all.
No. No, we are in a way anyway, whether we like it or not.
Like, dude,
So
I
there's
still
a duty of care in that,
I-
and I think people need to understand that you do have a duty of care in that, and that people are influenced by what you do on that, So, I don't know, you should be doing the right thing and not the wrong thing in
I
that,
apologise for how much I've been on my phone this podcast. I never touch my phone on a podcast. Bro, my phone is fucking exploding with people who are like, you got phone? You got phone? And I was like, bro, I went inside. When we came here, I went inside and she's like, who's that? I was like, that's a graffiti writer. And she's like, look like a school teacher.
People used to always say to me, I look like a cop.
Bro, I was...
But the whole idea was
you
about...
do. You look like an undercover.
But, the whole thing is like, you're supposed to be getting away with this shit.
Bro, you look like an undercover.
I don't want to stand out. I want everybody turning around just going, they're going to pull their heads in because I think I'm my surgeon.
You actually do. You look like one of those undercovers that would come
I used to say to people, mate, one more person asks me, I'm just going to say, right, give me your shit. Hand it over.
I got into a punch on at this club called Apple with this bloke because he would not deal me a pinger because he thought I was an undercover. And I was like, you fucking kidding me? And it's so funny that you say that because you do. You look like the guy that will come.
I was a lot more innocent when I was younger. I look a bit weathered these days, but yeah.
Have you ever sported a beard?
Once. Only
Didn't
once.
work out?
No.
Didn't work out for you? Are you full, but is your background full Aussie?
Yeah, well, as far as anyone's is.
As far as anyone's Aussie. A bit of Irish, bit of fucking English.
Yeah, Scottish, I think.
Scottish.
Yeah, and Welsh.
Yeah. Because you're a big man.
Yeah, no, we're all tall in my family.
All of you? Good on you.
Yeah, everyone's over 6 foot.
I'm the fucking tallest one in my family. I actually measured myself last week, 5'7".
Yeah.
Well, you would be about 6'2"?
5.
6'5". Jesus Christ. You would have no problem painting trains.
It's funny, I used to get bloody picked up that often, and that I knew how much I weighed and how tall I was.
Well, you'd be the easy.
Absolutely accurately, but it has been a long, long time, so I'm sort of guessing it's about 192 centimetres or something or other, so it's 6'4", 6'5", something like that.
You would have been good to go on a mission with because you would have been the...
Yeah, but it works, there's advantages and there's disadvantages to the height thing and that, in general.
The
And
running.
so, okay, from the graph sort of point of view on that, like I can think of things straight away, and that when I was doing, I'd train on a platform or something or other, I don't need a ladder, mate. I don't need a milk crate, none of that sort of shit, so that's easy, that's great. But at the same time, as you're 6'5" and that, and you're in a crowd of graffiti writers and that, you stand out a fair bit and that, and transits just go, hey, David, would like to have a talk to you. Or, what did the guy look like and that? Oh, he was dark haired or whatever and that, and he was 6'5" and that. Straight away, I'm in the mix of suspects. Because they go, oh, yeah, well, again, small community of graffiti writers in Adelaide at any one time and that, generally throughout the 80s and that, so who's the tall guy? Well, it's either Shay, or it's me.
Out of, like, when you're, it'd be funny for you, like, when you had your young bloke and it was growing up. Can you get mad at him if you got? I'm giving you a hypothetical now because it didn't happen, but if you got a knock on the door from the cops one day saying that he just bombed up this and this, what do you do as a father?
A few things that went on that, you know. And
but what do you do as a father?
Look, I just think if you're a parent, that, you know, like, it's a good idea to be a good communicator. It's that simple and that, you know. There's no point yelling at your kids. There's no point beating them and that. You know, I copped all that shit when I was younger and it did nothing except make me angry. You just communicate with your kids and that, man. And if you can't communicate with them on the same level and all the rest of it and get results and that, mate, then you've lost the battle and that. So I just always communicated properly with my son on that, and we talked about things and that, you know, and I educated him properly, I think, and that, you know, and he came out and he did a few pieces, and I just said to him, I said, don't bother running around and doing them illegally and that. You just don't need to. It's not your thing. You obviously.
But if he wanted to?
Yeah, that would have been different, but it just wasn't. You know, like, he just wasn't personally that interested in it. He just thought it was a bit of a novelty. He's like most kids, you know, even with sport or whatever and that. I don't want to watch it, but I'll play it. You know, it's the same with Graph. You know, I don't want to watch it. Well, you drag me around everywhere, Dad, and that, you know. So if you let me do one on that, you know, like, from my point of view, you're going to get the day accomplished a lot easier also.
Yeah.
So it's bribery in that respect. But yeah, you know, he was interested a little bit. He paid a little bit. But no, not personally interested. And I said to him, don't bother doing it. Your dad's done more for the whole family. We don't need to do anything, mate. We've done it all. You know, we've done it all, mate. We've got nothing to prove.
It's obviously
and that's the way I feel about Graph in general. You know, talk about maybe I'm somebody in the graffiti scene or whatever on that. I've done enough to hold my head high, well and truly high. I don't care what people think anymore. I stopped thinking about that and caring about that a long, long time ago, and that comes with age and confidence. I've not done the greatest stuff or anything by any means, and that, you know, there's people that have eclipsed my records immensely on that, you know, but I've done enough. I can hold my head high on that, and that's enough. And that makes me feel okay. What anybody else wants to do with any of that is entirely up to them.
I was talking to this about Jay Tuski as well, and it was like when you bridge there's a very big thing with graffiti artists, like Soffles. Soffles is the perfect example. When you bridge the gap between graffiti artist and now you're an artist, like a Banksy piece, which is very controversial to a lot of people.
So Soffles.
And Soffles. But like when you're bridging the gap between an artist and a graffiti artist, because eventually you're going to become the authority. Like,
but that's even if you consider that graffiti's even art to start with, and whether you want to blow that horn.
If you can fucking throw up a piece and it's colourful and people like to look at it, that's
but again,
fucking
from
art.
my point of view on that, as the actual artist, so to speak, myself, I don't give a shit.
I don't
care whether people consider it art or not, and that, because I'm not selling it, so to speak. I'm not selling that idea, so to speak.
Just doing
I
your
just don't
vibe.
care. And again, with age, there's that don't care
What's
factor.
your thought on like see, I had on a bloke called Jack Fran a couple months ago. No, last month. I had on Jack Fran, and he hated when I called him a street artist. But when I see people like Banksy and that, it's like, now that he's that big, he is now the authority on graffiti. Like, you can't go over a fucking Banksy piece.
No. Look, I think there's a clear distinction for a start, and that from street art to graffiti, it's that simple. Mm-hmm. And if street artists want to consider that graffiti is some sort of forerunner to what they're doing on that, that's great, man. Do graffiti writers rate street art at all on that? I don't really think in the slightest.
Do you rate
there's certainly people that have transitioned to it, and note that I use the word transition and not gravitated, you know, or anything like that, you know, like they've just, you know, they've transitioned into street art and that, you know, as a business or whatever and that, and if they're actually real graffiti writers and they've paid their dues, so to speak, and that on trains or whatever and that, and then great, good luck to them. And even, you know, people like, you know, Puzzle, for instance, has done this to a certain degree with sort of transitioning into publications and that, you know, and graphic design and that, as, you know, as something a bit different from graph and that, you know, and again, power to them. They've earned the right to. wankers that just rock up and that and start doing street art everywhere with faces and all the rest of it, with aerosol cans and that, and consider they've got anything to do with graffiti, and absolutely dreaming. They got nothing to do with graffiti. They just happen to be muralists, and we've always had muralists. They were muralists when I was younger, doing some really cool political ones around the place and that with paintbrushes. They're doing exactly the same thing. They just happen to be using the medium of spray cans. And I get a little bit annoyed about it all as well, because street artists just get automatically accepted. Mm-hmm. Because quite frankly, from the community's point of view on that, there's a sellout factor. That you're doing whatever we want you to do. And that's what we always wanted out of you graffiti writer guys from the first place. We don't want these tags, we don't want these pieces, we don't want these indecipherable bloody complex lettering things and that. We want faces. We want birds and all this sort of shit. And now that you're doing that, we're happy as a pig in shit. But where does that leave the actual original graffiti writer on that? Far out of that equation, mate. They're not the ones that are even getting a look in on that, of any of these sort of council jobs or any of this sort of stuff, unless they've transitioned. But again, if it's just some sort of graffiti writer that's transitioned into this street art council job on that, versus some person that's just started doing aerosol art because they thought it was trendy and they happened to be quite good at it or something or other, then I'd rather see the old graffiti writer get the job over this blow-in.
100%.
And that's about the only correlation. There are some vague sort of correlations between all of that, you know what I mean, and that, but there's no solid connection. There's no history. Look, let's be absolutely 100% honest with ourselves here and that. Get the fuck in a train yard and that and start doing some straight out whole cars. Until you cross that boundary, you're not a writer, man. Get in the train yard. Like, I don't even understand street art and that to a certain degree also, like the whole pecking order of it. Because graffiti is all about... It's all about fame, really, to a certain degree, and that, It's all about, it's a competition aspect to it, and that.
Yeah, you go.
And that's why you choose a name and that, and you're trying to get the name up as much as possible, and that. So where does street art factor into that? And if someone started doing some strange sort of faces on the side of trains or whatever, and that, would that be a cool thing or whatever, and that? Yeah, I don't know. Like, people do dabble in it a little bit and that, but does it get taken seriously? Not in my world, not in my mind. Maybe I've got an antiquated way of looking at these things.
I don't think you have an antiquated way of looking at things. I think that's a legit way to look at it.
I just think I'm a little bit staunch with it all and that, There's a common theme here a little bit with the whole...
He's bringing it back.
There's a common thread here between sort of art versus vandalism, and I'm on the vandalism side of things to a certain degree and that, And yeah, I only paint legal graffiti and that these days. But I'm on the vandal side of things now, but that's the way it's supposed to be and that, And you just can't... You can't press laws on an outlaw sort of situation. So that's just it's ridiculous.
At the end of the day, you're a graffiti artist. You're not you're a grapher. You're not a.
And even as I said before, in that I'm in the military or whatever, and that I'm a lot more into graffiti than I give myself credit for, because
you're
obviously
a grapher.
I'm very passionate about it. I'm very protective about it, and that like, there's a raw element of it, and it should be preserved. And these other blokes should just piss off, and it should be a bit mysterious in that to a certain degree also. There should be an air of mystery about it all to a certain degree.
Do you know how many graphers in Adelaide? When I met Fact, I had no idea what he looked like. I didn't know who he was or anything. And then I met him, and I was like, the mystery's unsolved. There's a mysticism.
There's a cool thing about graph like that as well, in that where you see someone's name and you see it in a certain way.
I know Fact, but I don't know him.
And you get a bit of an idea of what the dude would look like. You go, I reckon that guy's big, or he's short, or he's tall, or whatever the hell. And then you meet him and you just go, what?
It's like, I know
that guy?
I know Pho, but I don't know David. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird thing, and it's interesting. So, like, what do you think about what was it, like 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, when Banksy did that piece and this cunt just came up and fucking bombed it in front of everyone?
Again, I don't know what to believe when I see things like that. I think I know the thing you're referring to.
So Banksy did a little piece, a thing somewhere, and this bloke's just rocked up in a ballet. And he's just like, boof, 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 and tagged over it.
Going back a little bit with the story and that with Banksy, I was a bit sort of frustrated by it, annoyed by it and that some time ago. I just thought, who is this bloke? Everyone keeps raving on about him. He's supposed to be so mysterious and that. But let's be honest, mate, where are you sending the checks? I mean, it can't be that fucking difficult to work out who the bloke is, honestly. But then, and then you get back to the whole Team Robbo, Team Banksy sort of thing and that, which I'm sort of more interested in than any aspect of it and that. And if anything, I'll be into more Team Robbo on that.
Shout out to Robbo as well, by the way.
Because again, I backed the vandalism aspect of things and that, and the bloke was an old school guy and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I didn't really know the story behind it all. So I did a bit of a Google search thing and I found something on YouTube that sort of very succinctly sort of bloody painted the picture of what occurred between these two blokes.
Can you actually, before we continue, because I'm actually not that familiar on
Let's
it.
go for a toilet break.
Toilet break?
Yeah.
We'll take a piss and
talk
then
about Banksy?
we'll come back and I want you to explain the actual story between Banksy and Robbo.
I know, basically, I think.
Boom, we're on. Like Pho just said, it could be, like, Banksy could just be a conglomerate of people.
Could be, yeah. Could be any sort of
But-
entity, quite frankly.
The story, as far as you know, with him and Robbo.
Well, I think Robbo, like, I'd never really heard of Robbo so
who is
much.
Robbo?
Yeah, well, I'd never really heard of him so much in that, until sort of internet days and that, and I saw stuff a bit earlier and that, if I piece it all together. But you just go, okay, this bloke's supposed to be the bee's knees in London and that, like, what's his background on that? And I sort of learned that, he was a writer that was, he was the king of London sort of thing. It was undisputed, apparently. And so I think the whole thing with him and Banksy, some ex-writer or something as well that sort of phased into the street art sort of nature of things and that. But it all sort of, I think, sort of started over this one Robbo piece. Banksy went over it and they're going over one another. It's a tit-for-tat sort of situation and that's what sort of inflamed the whole sort of rivalry. Then Robbo ended up getting sick down the track and that, and I don't know what he ended up sort of being, infirmed with. But he ended up dying, so Robbo passed away in that, a handful of years back in that, of some sort of medical situation and that. But what I learned from this video was that these guys actually buried the hatchet prior to his death.
Oh, they did.
So the whole sort of rivalry that goes on that in some people's minds and that in this day and age and that, is sort of a bit sort of bloody false.
It's like Liberal and Labor. It's
This
just
particular sort of situation with the pieces that were going over one another tit for tat in this one wall on this canal, I think it was either just prior to his death or just after his death, perhaps. Banksy ended up doing this piece there, and he did the original Robbo or something or other piece that was there to start with, and that in respect, like. And again, they buried the hatchet prior to that.
But there
was a rivalry that went on there for quite some time.
It's just funny because when you start graffiti to its core, when you break it down to bare bones, it's an anti-establishment form of expression. That's what it is. Would you agree?
I don't know if I ever really looked at it like that.
But
I still don't.
If you were to break it down to its bare bones,
I'm an angry kid.
Yeah.
I want to break shit and all the rest of it and that, but it's not really my sort of kick to do that sort of stuff. I love trains. I'm artistic. Here comes along this thing and that just rolls it all into one on that, and then there's this cat and mouse game with it, and then you sort of meet this whole sort of group of people that sort of
are like-minded.
to a certain degree, yeah, they're like-minded in that, and to a certain degree, it's like a gang mentality in that. It's a family outside of a family in that, and as a sort of rebellious teenager in that, you gravitate towards that, and that'll kick, it ticks all the boxes with existence at the time and that, and your friends are everything, the scene is everything. Yeah, it's way more than just writing your name and
It's
that.
a home for people that don't have homes.
And yeah, everyone did, like the friends I had, on the most part, and that had at least one really good parent, and that that was probably pretty tolerant. Most of the people I knew on that, were from broken homes, and that was divorced parents.
Mate, it's very similar to like any form of gang. Like, do you know how many people I grew up with, and my boys were they were bikies, and it's like you just didn't have that artistic.
A lot of riders got into being bikies,
but that's
down
the
track
thing,
as
like
well.
because it's the same thing. And the bikie culture in Adelaide is about to heat up so much because it's back.
Well, and from a writing point of view on that, I sort of noticed over the years you ended up with sort of criminals that were into writing and writers that were into crime. There was sort of two distinct sort of things
Yeah.
going on there.
100%.
So therefore, if you were really a criminal that did a bit of riding and that, you probably went off into a gang or something, perhaps down the track and that, because that's always what you wanted to do, really. Anyway, you just hadn't found yourself just yet. You know, whereas riders are a bit different in that. You know,
It's a funny thing though, because Banksy probably started as a rider, but you're going for this anti-establishment thing, and then you get that big, like Soffles. You end up being the establishment. Like, if you go...
I can't comment with Soffles. I don't know what he does in that. But
I can't
Banksy
either.
stuff I like in that for the pure fact that it's thought provoking.
It's thought-provoking, but it's
Yeah, and I
orchestrated.
like
But
thought-provoking sort of stuff.
it's orchestrated though. So is it graffiti?
But as to who's doing it or whatever, I don't even
That's
care
it,
really,
no.
to be honest. Like it's just if it happens to be by him or whatever.
But if
Yeah,
graffiti,
there's good street art, so to speak, in that in my mind, and that, and then bad street art and that. Most of it's just run-of-the-mill, boring shit that's a fad and all the rest of it.
flowers.
I think what Banksy's doing, if it's one person or whatever, and that is again far more interesting. Is going to have much more longevity in that because it is creative and it is thought provoking.
But is it graffiti?
These faces and all the rest of it you see everywhere are just dime a dozen stamp crap.
Is it graffiti?
Oh, no, it's not graffiti.
Is it graffiti
Not graffiti writing in my
when the
definition.
council gives you approval to do it? Because I can fucking guarantee that he ain't flying to the Gaza Strip and fucking graffitiing it without the government knowing. I can guarantee it. You can't do that. If he did, no one is ever allowed to talk shit about him. Because that's the most dangerous thing you can probably do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get that impressed by all in that, to be honest, because I've seen all sorts of riders and all sorts of places. And
What's the most impressive thing, like, to you as a person? If a young bloke came up to you and he's like, I did this, what would be the most impressive
that's
thing?
just horses for courses, man. It depends on the person and the situation
Train.
and that.
What's the train? Because when I went to Japan, that bullet train,
I think anyone would be happy. I don't know, from my point of view on that. I'm a simple man. I don't ask so much in life on that, mate.
I was like, trains.
Just to have the opportunity and the satisfaction to do one nice train piece that you actually liked.
Really?
Like that's all. That'll do me.
It's just one train.
Just one nice one. One nice firm memory you can go to the grave with. What's wrong with that? I'm not a greedy man. Yeah, and the cup runneth over with those in my case and that. So
Do you have any you
happy
regret not
man.
doing when you were younger?
I don't know about regrets.
Because obviously now, when you're older, you have more responsibilities.
I regret I didn't do more, but I think I did as much as I could at the time also on that, I had troubled bloody youth and that. And yeah, no, there's the ones that weren't finished, the couple I didn't get photographs of, things like that I sort of regret to a certain degree. But all in all, no, I don't really have any regrets, mate. I've been very, very lucky and very, very fortunate with a lot of things, so I have no complaints. I cannot complain.
Well, it has been actually insane meeting you. And
Likewise, mate.
You have been my most requested guest, and my phone's blowing up right now because of that. And it's like, you got pho on? I was like, well, fucking yeah. I did. But it's been fantastic meeting you, and we will do it again. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Whenever you have some free time, because it's nice having a drink with you. You're a good bloke to drink with because you drink nice and proper. But if you had something to say to the younger generation of graphers, what would you bestow on them?
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know. Just be yourselves in that. Yeah. Again,
And with all the crews, like with all this crew stuff and stuff, what's the etiquette you would bestow on them? What in your knowledge, because you don't want to admit it, but you are a pioneer of South Australian graffiti. You are. I will give that to you, and you can take with it what you will. What would you bestow on a younger bloke that wants to come up in graffiti right now?
I think you can do anything in that, you know, and graffiti's one about a growing sort of learning curve with it all. But as long as you don't pretend to be something you're not, you're laughing. Now, that's sort of contradictory in a way on that, you know, because graffiti writing is all about sort of promoting an ego on that, about something that you're really not in a way. But there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it, that's all.
Yeah.
You know, no one likes a dickhead. You know, and I know that's simplifying it all, but stick to your principles, stand up for yourself and that, you know, because you have to in writing and that, and you'll do all right in the end. Stay the course.
Easy, David.
It's not rocket science.
It was fucking great meeting you. It was.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, brother.